Chapter 1616, Gu Jian. Chapter 1616, Gu Jian. Ask for directions. The two unicorn men with maroon skin exchanged a look, and one of them immediately laughed. It's easy if you want to ask for directions. If you can defeat the two of us, my brother and I will tell you everything we know no matter what you ask. Oh! Jian Wushuang was shocked. He was only asking for directions, but he had to first defeat the two of them. Jian Wushuang, there are many special tribes in ancient Godland, and most of the special tribes are extremely valiant. No matter what happens, they speak with their fists. The two of them are top universe gods too. They saw that they were on the same level as you are, so they wanted to fight a battle with you, King of Venomous Worms explained. I see, Jian Wushuang understood, and he said with a smile, if so, please go first. My brother and I, you pick one, the unicorn man who was the elder brother said. There's no need for trouble. The two of you can fight against me at the same time, Jian Wushuang smiled. So arrogant. Brother, as he has already said so, let us team up and teach him a lesson then. All right. The two unicorn men with maroon skin reached a mutual agreement and immediately moved together. Just as they moved, Hong. The earth instantly shattered. The two of them were originally 2 meters tall, but that instant, they increased their height to 12 meters tall. Just like two mountains, they pounded at Jian Wushuang straight away. Interesting. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly and moved. He appeared before a small mountain and punched casually with one first. The older unicorn man was burning with rage, and he clenched his fist and pounded fiercely. Bang! The size of two fists that weren't proportionate collided. After he let out a groan, the unicorn man with a mountain-like body suddenly rolled out. Jian Wushuang moved again but appeared above the head of another unicorn man. He pointed with his index finger and pressed on his head. Lie down. Hong. The ground under the unicorn man suddenly sunk, and his body was pressed down by Jian Wushuang entirely. He couldn't move an inch. After a short duration, the battle ended. The two of you, do you admit defeat? Jian Wushuang looked at the two people before him. The two people resumed their original look of 2 meters tall. The two of them looked at Jian Wushuang in astonishment. Your strength is that strong? The older unicorn man exclaimed, my brother and I are members of Fire Demon Tribe. We, Fire Demon Tribe, are good at strength, and we are at the same level as you are. But when we met force with force, we were cornered by you. In Ancient God Sanctuary, to be able to win against Fire Demon Tribe of the same realm, should only be Ancient God and those Ancient God with extremely pure bloodline. I am really an Ancient God, Jian Wushuang admitted, so can you answer my questions now? Of course, mister. Go ahead and ask whatever questions you want, the older unicorn man said. In Ancient God Sanctuary, many tribes spoke with power. Jian Wushuang's power was much stronger than theirs. They naturally admitted their defeat. I'd like to know where in the region of Ancient God Sanctuary is this, and where is the nearest city? Jian Wushuang asked. In a short while, Jian Wushuang got the answer that he wanted. The two Fire Demon tribesmen left right after as well. Jian Wushuang, let's go to the nearest city, Gu King City, King of Venomous Worms said. Jian Wushuang nodded and immediately went in the direction that the two Fire Demon tribe had given to go to the nearest Gu King City. Gu King City, one of the 9 ancient god cities, and most of the ancient gods in the city shared the surname Gu. Among the ancient god tribe, their surname was the symbol of their identity. There were many surnames among ancient gods, but there weren't many royal surnames that existed among the royal ancient gods. The surname Gu was one of the surnames of royal ancient gods. Gu King City was huge and crowded with experts. There were many experts from those special tribes, but there were a lot more of ancient gods. In Gu King City, there were more than 10 million ancient gods that resided there. The ancient gods with the surname Gu took up at least 50%. Jian Wushuang came to Gu King City. On the streets of Gu King City, Jian Wushuang could see many people shuttling to and fro. Some of the figures had a normal human appearance, some were ancient god bodies a few meters tall, and there were also various other tribes. By the side of the streets, he saw lofty buildings. The buildings were huge. The ancient gods were tall and brawny after all. Jian Wushuang, as you came to ancient god tribe, give yourself an ancient god name. Otherwise, your name as Jian Wushuang will be strange and you might attract attention inevitably, King of Venomous Worms reminded. Jian Wushuang nodded. He thought and he had an idea. The ancient gods in Gu King City mostly have the surname Gu. So, I shall use Gu as my surname. I'll just name myself Gu Jian. Simple. As long as it sounds like an ancient god's name, it will do. King of Venomous Worms didn't care. Oh yeah, I remember back when I met ancient god tribes back in Firmament Territory in Greenfire World, most of them has the surname Gu as well. Their leader, King Gu Tong, was a 7-star royal ancient god. I wonder if they are related to Gu King City, Jian Wushuang muttered. As they are ancient gods with the surname Gu, they are definitely related to Gu King City, King of Venomous Worms said. If so, that'd be interesting. I wonder if I will run into those ancient gods in Gu King City that I met back then in Firmament Territory. Jian Wushuang was looking forward to it. Don't bother with that just yet. First, go and register for training examination of Ancient God Palace that happens every century, King of Venomous Worms said. Training examination of Ancient God Palace? What's that? Jian Wushuang was confused. Ancient God Palace is a place specifically for cultivating ancient god secret skills and massacre unique skills. There's 9 great king cities and every city has an ancient god palace and they teach 5-star and 6-star ancient gods secret skill and unique skill in ancient god palace. The lowest requirement to enter ancient god palace is 5-star ancient god that passed 3 ancient gods test. You happen to fulfill the criteria, King of Venomous Worms said. In other words, if I want to cultivate ancient gods secret skills and unique skills that are suitable for my current level, I have to enter ancient god palace? Jian Wushuang asked. Yes. Besides ancient god palace, there is almost no hope to get any secret skill for a 5-star ancient god or above within ancient god sanctuary. Just like some ancient god tribe in ancient god sanctuary, they have some secret skills and unique skills for ancient gods internally but the levels are too low. Understood. Jian Wushuang understood and he walked into the ancient god palace of Gu King City. Chapter 16-17, 3 Secret Skills, for Unique Skills. Chapter 16-17, 3 Secret Skills, for Unique Skills. In the ancient god palace, at the place of registration for the examination. Your name, an old married woman sitting behind a desk said. Gu Jian, Jian Wushuang said. Which king do you wish to be under? The old married woman continued to question him. Jian Wushuang frowned slightly and he complained in his mind, King of Venomous Worms, you did not tell me that such a question would be asked during registration. I have not been to the ancient god sanctuary for so many years. How could I know the ancient god palace would change its rules? The King of Venomous Worms curled his lips and said. Jian Wushuang shrugged his shoulders and took a deep breath. King Gu Tong. Jian Wushuang was unable to confirm whether King Gu Tong was a royal ancient god of the Gu King City. However, since he did not know of any other kings, he could only summon up his courage and try his luck. King Gu Tong? The old married woman raised her head and glanced at Jian Wushuang with surprise. However, she still wrote down the name Gu Jian on a jade bamboo strip. Take this jade bamboo strip and come back 30 years later to participate in the assessment. Thank you very much. Jian Wushuang heaved a sigh of relief. After taking the jade bamboo strip, he left immediately. Looks like King Gu Tong is indeed a 7-star ancient god of the Gu King City, Jian Wushuang giggled. Perhaps so, the King of Venomous Worms said. Oh right, King of Venomous Worms, you said that the secret skills and close-quarter combat unique skills that are suitable for an ancient god like me to learn are within the ancient god palace. However, what kind of secret skills and unique skills are there? Jian Wushuang questioned with curiosity. He had only come for the sake of the secret skills and unique skills. As such, he needed to have a basic understanding of the secret skills and unique skills. In the ancient god clan, the 3 secret skills and the 4 unique skills are best suited for 5-star, 6-star, and even 7-star ancient gods. The 3 secret skills are the thunder attracting skill, star destruction skill, and the moon picking skill. The 3 secret skills are known as remarkable abilities that can shake the whole universe. Back then, as an 8-star ancient god, my old master King Luotian had mastered these 3 secret skills completely. Moreover, these 3 secret skills were one of the greatest powers that he relied on. As for the 4 unique skills, they are skills used specially for close-quarters combat. They are similar to those unique skills created by human beings by comprehending the power of Heaven Wei. However, the ancient gods are strong in terms of their bodies and the strength that they possess. As for the power of Heaven Wei, they have never really studied it. Hence, within the ancient god clan, there are very few people who are able to comprehend the power of Heaven Wei. Even if they were able to comprehend it, they would only be able to comprehend a general portion of it. However, even without the aid of the power of Heaven Wei, with just the unreasonable power of bloodline within their own bodies and these 4 unique skills, the clansmen of the ancient gods would not be weaker than a human being of similar realm. Moreover, they might even be slightly stronger, the king of venomous worms said. After hearing what was said, Jian Wushuang exclaimed in admiration. The ancient god clan possessed powerful bodies, which were their greatest advantage. However, their comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei was incomparable to human beings. In spite of that, even without comprehending the power of Heaven Wei at all, the ancient gods could also possess unparalleled abilities. Not only that, they could also achieve a level that could be compared to the human beings' almighties and even emperor-level super-experts. The finger-type ancient god unique skill that I grasped as a result of obtaining the memory of inheritance previously, is it considered one of the 4 unique skills? Jian Wushuang asked. That's right. The finger skill that you grasped is the ancient god's finger of the ancient god clan's 4 unique skills. However, what you have obtained is merely the first 6 fingers of the ancient god's finger. Under normal circumstances, a 6-star ancient god would be able to use these 6 fingers. However, there are still 3 final fingers remaining for this finger skill, and they can only be used by 7-star ancient gods, the king of venomous worms said. As expected, there are 3 stronger fingers. Jian Wushuang's eyes brightened up. Among the unique skills of the ancient god clan, he had quite a good understanding of the ancient god's finger. Moreover, the ancient god's finger was indeed powerful, and it even became Jian Wushuang's strongest attack move at one point in time. However, within the ancient god clan, there were still 3 other unique skills and the 3 secret skills which could be compared to the ancient god's finger. As he thought about it, Jian Wushuang started to feel excited. I have to pass that assessment 30 years later and enter the ancient god palace. Jian Wushuang clenched both his fists tightly. For the 30 years, Jian Wushuang had stayed within the Gu King city and trained quietly. To Jian Wushuang of that very moment, 30 years' time was just a split second, and it would be over quickly. In the ancient god palace, there were hundreds of figures standing on the drill ground. There were males and females among the figures. However, their physiques were big in general. Jian Wushuang was within the crowd as well. Compared to others, his body was obviously a lot smaller. Isn't there a lot of people? Jian Wushuang was looking at the surrounding people. All those people were ancient gods. Moreover, they were 5-star ancient gods who had cleared the ancient god test of the 3rd heaven. Hence, in terms of realm, they were the same as Jian Wushuang. Swoosh! An indifferent man, who was above 5 meters tall and glowing with silver light, appeared in front of everyone. The indifferent man was a 6-star, silver-armored ancient god, and he was equivalent to a real god of human beings. Moreover, he was an eternal real god. The assessment this time around will consist of 3 stages. Those who are able to pass all 3 stages will be able to stay in the ancient god palace. As for failures, you can come back again after 10,000 years. The indifferent man's voice spread across the crowd. All the ancient gods on the martial arts training ground could not help but clench their fists. The ancient god assessment. Although it would be held once every 100 years, if the participating ancient gods failed the assessment this time around, they would have to wait for another 10,000 years before being able to participate in the assessment a second time. That was the ancient god palace's rules. Jian Wushuang, let me remind you that this is the ancient god clan and you are participating in the ancient god assessment. Hence, during the assessment later, you had better not use your divine power as well as the comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei. You have to use only ancient god power and techniques of ancient gods to pass this assessment, the king of venomous worms said. Understood, Jian Wushuang nodded his head. Now, let the first assessment begin, the indifferent man's voice spread throughout the area. The expressions of all the ancient gods on the martial arts training ground became serious and they were also extremely nervous. However, the indifferent man only announced the start of the first assessment, not its content. At the moment when all the ancient gods were feeling puzzled, rumble. A frightening power exerted pressure on everyone. The power contained pressure from an extremely pure bloodline, as well as aura, and it was placed on top of everyone like a lofty mountain. The real gods on the martial arts training ground were under great pressure from the weight and some of them were caught by surprise. Hence, 4 of them crouched down straight away. By crouching down, they had failed the assessment. What powerful pressure! This pressure should be released by top 6-star ancient gods which are equivalent to chaotic real gods of the human beings. Moreover, the bloodline of this ancient god is extremely pure and he should be a gold-armored ancient god, Jian Wushuang said. Chapter 16:18, Beating the Drum 24 Times. Chapter 16:18, Beating the Drum 24 Times. In the martial arts battlefield, many ancient gods were overwhelmed by the great pressure, but they didn't give up. Jian Wushuang also appeared to be struggling, but he was actually faking it. With his strength and mind power, Jian Wushuang could easily handle it even if a 6-star silver-armored ancient god released the pressure solely toward him. To him it was like a piece of cake. Bang! Many competitors fell down. Just a moment later, half of the ancient gods failed the game and quit. The rest of the participants, except Jian Wushuang, were all struggling with great difficulty. At that moment, the great pressure dissipated all of a sudden. All of the competitors felt relieved. They were so tired that they laid down and panted heavily. Jian Wushuang was still standing and appeared red in the face. There was only one person still standing in addition to Jian Wushuang. He was 2 meters tall and had eyes filled with golden light. The man was looking at Jian Wushuang curiously. He is the only one who is standing as I do. He seems highly strong, the young man muttered. The first round of the game has ended. Competitors who have passed can have a rest for half an hour, and the second round will begin. A powerful god was presiding over the game. The people who passed the first round of tests on the battlefield immediately took time to recover. After half an hour, the ancient gods had almost restored their power to their peaks. At that time, the 8 ancient gods carried a huge drum and slowly walked towards the battlefield. The drums? Jian Wushuang was puzzled. This is Myriad Beast Drum, the unique drum of the ancient gods, King of Venomous Worms said. Except Jian Wushuang, other competitors apparently had a clear idea of what the drum was. I don't think I should say anything more about the second round, given that you are all familiar with Myriad Beast Drum. Every candidate goes to beat the drum one by one, and he beats as many times as possible, the god presiding over the game said. The first ancient god came forward. Bang, bang, bang. The ancient god beat 3 times in the beginning, and the sound was thunderous. Then he apparently slowed down but kept going. After 12 times, the ancient god tried to knock again, but this time, when the drumsticks knocked on the drums, there was no sound. It is not a good performance. King of Venomous Worms commented. Oh! Jian Wushuang wondered how much he could achieve. He didn't think that the drum was easy to beat. After that, one ancient god after another came forward and knocked on the drum, but most of them beat only 13 to 18 times. The best candidate was the 2-meter-tall young man, who beat 21 times. The first ancient god to beat over 20 times. After the young man beat 20 times, the host could not help but nod at him slightly to show his appreciation. Finally, it was Jian Wushuang's turn. Taking a deep breath, Jian Wushuang came in front of the drum. Jian Wushuang, the Beast King drum, is not uncommon in the ancient god sanctuary. Not only the Gu King city, but also some of the ancient god tribes have the existence of their Beast King drums, so these participants must have beat the drum many times. They know how to control the power properly, but you are different. It is the first time for you to beat the drum. So spare no efforts to beat the drum by using your ancient god power. Okay, Jian Wushuang nodded. After taking a deep breath, Jian Wushuang took the drumsticks and started to generate his ancient god power. Boom! The first time Jian Wushuang beat the Beast King drum, he realized that he couldn't act as coherently as the other ancient gods. After only one stroke, he had to pause for a while, but the drum put out a heavy sound. He felt a great resistance force when he was beating. It seems that I have to counter the great force in order to beat the drum. Hey! 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 After 4 consecutive beats, Jian Wushuang felt that the resistance was getting stronger and stronger. Just do your best. Jian Wushuang then generated his ancient god power to the limit, followed by several sounds of the drum beating. The drum was resounding in this martial arts field. After a while, Jian Wushuang had beat for 20 times. The resistance of the drum had reached an extremely high level, and Jian Wushuang had to admit that he couldn't use his power properly. In fact, I once beat the Beast King drum when I didn't have that much ancient god power, and I know that I don't need to use so much ancient god power. At least 50% of my power is wasted. Jian Wushuang shook his head smilingly, but he didn't care that much actually. Anyway, he continued to use the rest of his power to beat the drum. Hey! 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 Another 4 beats. When the 5th beat was made, Jian Wushuang was completely exhausted. The drumsticks tapped on the drum, but there was no sound. Jian Wushuang's final result was 24. Jian Wushuang, with the high purity of your blood lineage and the ancient god power you have, if you knew how to use your power properly and didn't waste so much power, you could have completely finished beating even 30 times. King of Venomous Worms said. Indeed, but it doesn't matter as long as I can pass this game. Jian Wushuang smiled. Many ancient gods participating in the game, including the youth with golden eyes who had beaten the drum 21 times, all widened their eyes and looked at the sword with amazement. Chapter 1619, Undying Demon Ape. Chapter 1619, Undying Demon Ape. 24 sounds? This person actually sounded the Beast King drum 24 times? His ancient god power is so thick and rich. Moreover, his bloodline is definitely extremely pure. The ancient gods around the area were exclaiming with admiration. It should be known that the golden-haired youth, who was the strongest among them, had only managed to sound the drum 21 times. In addition, it would get even harder to sound the Beast King drum the more times it was sounded. Where did this person come from? Why have I not heard of him before? The golden-haired youth frowned. Even the indifferent man who was hosting the assessment glanced at Jian Wushuang and smiled at him. Not bad. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. In a split second, the second assessment was over. Anyone who had managed to sound the Beast King drum at least 16 times would be able to enter the third assessment. With that, the ancient gods in the assessment were reduced by more than half. In the end, only 10 ancient gods remained for the third assessment. Amidst these 10 ancient gods, the most dazzling person was naturally Jian Wushuang, followed by the golden-haired youth. We shall rest for 2 days so that all of you can recover your ancient god power. The third assessment shall begin 2 days later, the indifferent man said. The 10 remaining ancient gods then started to recover their ancient god power immediately. After all, they had exhausted all their ancient god power to sound the Beast King drum moments ago. Under normal circumstances, the ancient gods would definitely be unable to recover their ancient god power fully in 2 days' time. However, the ancient gods present were top 5-star ancient gods who had cleared the ancient god test of the third heaven. Hence, they had been recognized by the plenilune. By relying on the plenilune inside their bodies to recover their power, they would definitely be able to achieve their peak within 2 days, or even less than 2 days. At the same time when they were recovering their ancient god power, the golden-haired youth came beside Jian Wushuang. I am Gu Zhen and I am under King Gu Yi. The golden-haired youth introduced himself. Gu Jian and I am under King Gu Tong, Jian Wushuang said. King Gu Tong, the golden-haired youth revealed a surprised expression. You are a clansman of King Gu Tong? That's right. Is there a problem? Jian Wushuang said. No problem. It's just that I did not expect that among the clansmen of King Gu Tong, there would actually still be an outstanding clansman like you, Gu Zhen gasped with admiration. After hearing what was said, Jian Wushuang's expression changed. He could tell that the clansmen of King Gu Tong who he had mentioned seemed to be in a bad situation. It's really impressive that you are able to sound the Beast King drum 24 times. Among the 5-star ancient gods in the whole Gu King city, there are probably very few people who can compete with you. However, sounding the Beast King drum merely requires the richness and thickness of the ancient god power as well as the purity of the bloodline. It is not really affected by our own fighting capabilities. Gu Zhen stared at Jian Wushuang. If nothing goes wrong, the third assessment later on should be actual combat. If there is an opportunity then, let's have a fair competition. Gu Zhen's eyes were filled with excitement and there was a fighting intent hidden deep inside his eyes. It was obvious that he did not feel that he was not as outstanding as Jian Wushuang. All right, Jian Wushuang nodded his head while laughing. 2 days' time passed by in a flash. Everyone had made a full recovery and they were at their peaks. The eyes of the indifferent man who was hosting the assessment looked around the surrounding and his voice was extremely loud. The third assessment is actual combat, and your opponent is over there. Under the guidance of the indifferent man, the participants saw a few ancient gods carrying a giant iron cage together and they were walking toward the martial arts training ground. Upon arriving at the martial arts training ground, the ancient gods removed the black cloth on the cage and revealed the 3 humongous animals within the cage. For the 3 humongous animals, each of them was at least 100 feet tall. Moreover, their entire bodies were filled with pitch-black hair and they looked like giant apes. However, they had a total of 4 arms and every arm was unusually thick. These are undying demon apes. The king of venomous worms' voice echoed in Jian Wushuang's head. I did not expect the ancient god palace of the Gu King city to actually use undying demon apes as your opponents for the assessment. This is going to be interesting. The indifferent man at the center of the martial arts training ground continued to speak. All of you will take turns to fight against these 3 undying demon apes. You have 10 breaths time. As long as you are able to defeat these 3 undying demon apes within this time limit, you will pass this assessment. Now the first. One ancient god walked up immediately and in no time, he started to fight against the 3 undying demon apes. As soon as they fought, Jian Wushuang could tell that although the 3 undying demon apes had extremely big physiques, their abilities were not strong and they were similar to top universe gods. However, when the 3 undying demon apes unleashed their powers, they would at most be slightly stronger than a top universe god of the 3rd heaven of the human beings. Moreover, the 3 undying demon apes had never touched the power of heaven way before. Hence, their close-quarters combat techniques were sloppy. The undying demon ape is a weak clan, right? Compared to other special clans, it seems to be a lot weaker, Jian Wushuang murmured. Jian Wushuang, you're wrong. The undying demon ape is not a weak clan. On the contrary, it is a top clan. Within the ancient god sanctuary, apart from the ancient god clan, there are the 8 top clans which are considered the strongest. As for the 8 top clans, the undying demon ape clan is one of them, the king of venomous worms said. Top clan? Even though they are clearly not strong? Jian Wushuang said with surprise. Indeed, they are not strong. However, they possess special abilities. Just wait and see, the king of venomous worms laughed. Jian Wushuang observed thoroughly. At that very moment, the ancient god in the battlefield struck the head of an undying demon ape with a very big fist of his fiercely and his unreasonable strength smashed the head of the undying demon ape straight away. Under normal circumstances, when the head was smashed, the being would be completely dead. However, after some time, the head of the undying demon ape regenerated. This is... Jian Wushuang opened his eyes wide. The undying demon ape. Could it be that they have the ability to not die? Not die? That's not true. Jian Wushuang, as an inverse cultivator, back then when you were at the stage of eternal realm, wasn't the ability that you possessed immortality as well? Although the special ability of the undying demon ape is slightly inferior to your immortality, it is still very close to it. Thus, if you want to kill an undying demon ape, unless you use a great technique to annihilate its body completely, otherwise it will regenerate quickly, the king of venomous worms said. I see, Jian Wushuang exclaimed with admiration. He finally knew why the undying demon apes were known as one of the top clans. Their undying ability was really a bit too frightening. With such an ability, the 3 undying demon apes, which were top universe gods, would be fine as long as they did not come across experts that were at the level of top void real gods and above. However, if a normal void real god were to come across the undying demon apes, it would be very difficult for the void real god to kill them. Since the undying demon ape's ability to remain alive was so strong, they would continue to multiply and their numbers would naturally increase. As they continued to grow, they would be able to become a top clan. 10 breaths time is up. The indifferent man who was hosting the assessment shouted. With that, the battle stopped straight away and the ancient god who fought first walked down with his face filled with bitterness. Chapter 1620, Pass the Test. Chapter 1620, Pass the Test. Next one. The third round of tests continued, and each ancient god went up one by one to fight the 3 undying demon apes. Although undying demon apes were not so strong, they still posed a great challenge for the ancient gods as participants could beat them within 10 breaths. Soon more than a dozen ancient gods had taken the challenge, but only one person had passed the test. At that time, the youth with golden eyes appeared. Gu Jian, let's have a competition and see who can beat those apes in the shortest time, Gu Jian also said to Jian Wushuang before he took the challenge. Okay, Jian Wushuang responded with a smile. Gu Jian was obviously stronger than other ancient gods who had participated in the test, not only in terms of purity of his blood but also in his fighting skills. In just 6 breaths, the 3 undying demon apes were defeated by Gu Jian. 6 breaths. Gu Jian was obviously quite satisfied with his performance. It is your turn, Gu Jian. Gu Jian walked down and looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang smiled and went up. The 3 undying demon apes' eyes were full of aggression and endless hate when they stared at the sword. They were imprisoned by those from the ancient god clan and had suffered humiliation. They were therefore resentful to ancient gods from ancient god clan. Therefore, every time they fought against the ancient gods, they all tried their best to kill their enemies, but always failed. Jian Wushuang, you can use your ancient god power to defeat them, King of Venomous Worms suggested. Yeah, Jian Wushuang agreed. Get started, the host announced. In the blink of an eye, 3 undying demon apes rushed straight toward Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang calmly generated his great ancient god power into his right index finger. Ancient god's 4th finger, God test. He pointed his powerful index finger to the apes. Bang! The surrounding space was smashed and the whole universe went dark. In the darkness, a giant finger came into existence from the distant sky. Everyone was shocked. Is it ancient god 4th finger? Even the prominent judge was surprised and frowned. Generally, cultivators could only learn the unique skill of ancient god finger in ancient god palace in 9 great king cities. Though several ancient god tribes also had this unique skill, they had no more than the first 3 finger skills. However, Jian Wushuang used the 4th one. Has he learned the skill from the ancient god palace? The host wondered. The giant finger that had the power to ruin the earth stretched out, and Jian Wushuang used the finger to attack undying demon apes, who couldn't resist at all. In an instant, 3 undying demon apes were torn apart by the terrifying power. The power of this finger finally fell completely, the battlefield calmed down, and the undying demon apes began to recover. Okay, just with my ancient god power, I can't kill these 3 undying demon apes, Jian Wushuang said. But he didn't care. He had successfully finished what the game had required. As for the time spent, only a breath. Yes, Jian Wushuang had defeated the 3 undying demon apes only with a 1 breath's time. Gu Zhen felt mixed feelings when he saw Jian Wushuang's performance. I thought that I was good to beat the undying demon apes with 6 breaths, but this guy used only 1 breath, and he is even able to use the ancient god 4th finger. How is it possible? How did he get this skill? Gu Zhen was confused. Soon, the 3rd round of tests was completely over. Among the hundreds of ancient gods participating in the test from the beginning, only 4 people had passed all the 3 rounds. Jian Wushuang was among them. That is to say, I can go to the ancient god palace to cultivate the 3 secret skills and 4 unique skills there, right? Jian Wushuang was excited. It is supposed to be like that, but... The voice of King of Venomous Worms suddenly changed. What's wrong? Jian Wushuang frowned, but the next moment he immediately felt a strong power. Other ancient gods in this martial arts field had also noticed the coming figure. He was a bald man in a long robe. The bald man showed his ancient god body. He was 5 meters tall, and his body was covered with a layer of dark golden light. The most eye-catching characteristic was the bald man's eyebrows, between which there were 7 stars. 7-star ancient god. Many of the ancient gods were shocked, and they gathered to bow to the 7-star ancient god. He overlooked the ancient gods in front of him and found the youth with golden eyes and spoke, "Gu Zhen." "My dear king." Gu Zhen immediately came forward to show his respect. The bald man was King Gu. "Have you passed the test?" King Gu Yi asked Gu Zhen. "Yes," Gu Zhen nodded. "You are the best?" King Gu Yi asked. Gu Zhen immediately shook his head. "I am not the best. The best is Gu Jian." Then Gu Zhen pointed to Jian Wushuang. Then King Ku Yi glanced at Jian Wushuang, but the moment he looked at Jian Wushuang he was surprised. And in front of a 7-star ancient god, who was comparable to the mighty, Jian Wushuang was a little bit nervous. "Jian Wushuang, I think you are in trouble now," King of Venomous Worms said to Jian Wushuang. "Little guy, show your ancient god body," King Gu Yi said to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang was surprised by the requirement. So were others. Others realized that they didn't see Jian Wushuang's ancient god body when he was beating the drum or fighting the apes. "Do as he said, Jian Wushuang. It's now hard to hide your power," King of Venomous Worms said. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly and his figure also exploded in the next moment while his skin turned dark. He started to show his power. "This is Royal Ancient God?" Many ancient gods were shocked when they felt the power of Jian Wushuang. Even King Gu Yi was surprised. This breath is the human god bloodline. Chapter 1621, Not Acknowledged. Chapter 1621, Not Acknowledged. Royal Ancient God. No wonder he's so remarkable. Another royal ancient god has been born in the Gu King city. Many ancient gods on the martial arts training ground looked at Jian Wushuang with respect. The ancient god clan had always revered those with abilities and specific bloodlines. Under normal circumstances, a gold-armored ancient god was considered the highest level of ancient god bloodline. As for a royal ancient god, there were not many of them in a great king city. If they were to grow up in the future, they could definitely become the king of a faction. Hence, the birth of every new royal ancient god would be a joyous occasion within the king city. As such, the ancient gods present were also delighted. Except King Gu Yi, whose face did not have any slightest bit of happiness. Instead, his face was ice cold. He was a 7-star royal ancient god. Hence, he was a super expert who was strong enough to compete with the almighties of the human beings. While other ancient gods could only tell that Jian Wushuang had the bloodline of a royal ancient god, King Gu Yi could tell that Jian Wushuang also possessed the bloodline of a human being. In other words, Jian Wushuang possessed a bloodline mixed between ancient gods and human beings. I did not expect someone among the people with a mixed bloodline of ancient gods and human beings to actually be able to awaken a royal ancient god bloodline. King Gu Yi was staring at Jian Wushuang. After hearing what was said, the ancient gods present were shocked. Mixed bloodline? Gu Jian possesses a mixed bloodline? Moreover, it's a mixed bloodline with human beings? A mixed bloodline has actually become a royal ancient god. The ancient gods present, including the golden-haired youth, started to change the way they looked at Jian Wushuang. Gu Jian, right? King Gui looked down at Jian Wushuang and his eyes were cold. You can go back now. Go back? Then the ancient god palace. Jian Wushuang frowned. A mixed bloodline like you wishes to go into the ancient god palace? King Gui gave a cold hum. The eyes of the surrounding ancient gods were filled with coldness as well. As expected, the king of venomous worms sighed. After so many years, the rules of the ancient god palace have not changed at all. King of venomous worms, what is going on? Jian Wushuang questioned. Jian Wushuang, I told you before that the ancient god clan reveres the bloodline. Moreover, the purer the bloodline, the more respected they are. If you were a pure royal ancient god, not to mention joining the ancient god palace, it would also be easy for you to build a lineage that belonged to you. However, it's a pity. Not only do you possess the royal ancient god bloodline, you are also a human being. Hence, you are a mixed bloodline between ancient gods and human beings. Within the ancient god clan, this kind of bloodline is not acknowledged. The king of venomous worms said. Not acknowledged? Jian Wushuang was stunned. That's right. It does not matter whether it is a mixed bloodline between ancient gods and human beings or a mixed bloodline between ancient gods and other clans. As long as the bloodline is not pure, and thus incomplete, the person will not be recognized by the ancient god clan. Moreover, the ancient god palace has had a rule since a long time ago saying that mixed bloodlines will not be able to enter the ancient god palace. The king of venomous worms continued speaking. As I left the lineage of ancient gods for too long, I do not know whether the rules of the ancient god palace have changed. Hence, I decided to let you participate in the ancient god palace's assessment. If the rules have changed, that would be best, as you would be able to enter the ancient god palace openly to cultivate the 3 secret skills and 4 unique skills. Therefore, I decided to let you sneak into the ancient god palace to get your hands on the secret skills and unique skills. After getting your hands on these skills, we can leave immediately and those 7-star ancient gods might not take notice at all. Even if they were to realize it, they could only give you some punishment at best and you would just have to take it. That is what I thought. However, who would expect you to be discovered by a 7-star ancient god even before sneaking into the ancient god palace? Is that so? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Then we can only leave now, right? Leave? Since you have passed the assessment, how can we leave so easily? The king of venomous worms said with a cold voice. Since we are unable to enter the ancient god palace to cultivate those unique skills and secret skills by normal means, we can only do it the hard way. The hard way? How can we do it the hard way? Jian Wushuang questioned. It should be known that the person in front of him was a 7-star ancient god. Moreover, the Gu King city was filled with numerous experts. Hence, what could a 5-star ancient god like him do? Jian Wushuang, tell King Gui that you wish to challenge the Star Moon Tower, the king of venomous worms said. Moon Star Tower? What is that? Jian Wushuang was confused. Don't ask so many questions. Just follow what I have said, the king of venomous worms said. All right. Jian Wushuang did not hesitate. He raised his head at once and looked toward King Gui, who was in front of him. He then said, My lord, I wish to challenge the Star Moon Tower. As soon as the words left his mouth, the void of the martial arts training ground froze instantly. All the ancient gods present opened their eyes wide and looked at Jian Wushuang. Their eyes seemed as though they had heard something impressive. Even King Gui revealed a shocked expression. What did you just say? King Gui stared at Jian Wushuang. I said that I wanted to challenge the Star Moon Tower, Jian Wushuang repeated himself. Ha! King Gui laughed loudly straight away. Little kid, you really dare to say anything. For many years, no one has had the courage to challenge the Star Moon Tower. Yet, you wish to challenge it? Do you know how the word death is spelt? Looking at the fact that you were able to awaken the royal bloodline, I would advise you to leave quickly, if not. I have already made up my mind, Jian Wushuang said coldly. King Gu Yi squinted his eyes slightly and looked at Jian Wushuang deeply. Great, since you wish to die, I shall grant you your wish. The Star Moon Tower will be open in 10 days. If you have the ability, go ahead and challenge it. After his speech, King Gu Yi swung his robe sleeves and left. As for those ancient gods present, all of them were looking at Jian Wushuang with mixed feelings. Some of them were shocked, some of them revered him, some of them sneered at him, and some of them looked at him as if he were an idiot. Gu Jian. The golden-haired youth walked in front of Jian Wushuang and he was filled with mixed feelings. Although you are a mixed bloodline who is unable to be recognized by the ancient god clan, I, Gu Jian, admire your courage and resolve to challenge the Star Moon Tower. I hope that you are still able to remain alive after 10 days. After his speech, Gu Jian left as well. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath. He ignored the unusual gazes of the people present and left. At the same time, he was also questioning the king of venomous worms about the details of the Star Moon Tower. He merely took the initiative to say that he wanted to challenge the Star Moon Tower and that he was extremely sure of it. However, in actual fact, he himself was unsure of what exactly the Star Moon Tower was. Chapter 1622, Star Moon Tower. Chapter 1622, Star Moon Tower. Tell me what Star Moon Tower exactly is. Why do so many ancient gods think that I am looking for trouble for myself? Jian Wushuang asked King of Venomous Worms. Well, they are right. This Star Moon Tower is a dangerous place, King of Venomous Worms said. Star Moon Tower, as well as Ancient God Palace, was the legacy of the Ancient God Emperor. There has been a rule since a long time ago. Ancient gods without pure blood cannot enter the Ancient God Palace, with only one exception. This Star Moon Tower is the exception. There are 7 layers in it, of which the first 4 layers represent the 4 great unique skills, and the last 3 layers represent the 3 secret skills. Those ancient gods without pure blood can enter the Ancient God Palace by passing the test in the Star Moon Tower. You can only get the 4 great unique skills after you finish the 4th layer of the tower. If you pass all 7 layers, you will get both the 4 great unique skills and the 3 secret skills. Jian Wushuang smiled, but the Star Moon Tower test is not easy to pass, right? You're right. You have to get through the first 4 floors without stopping, after which you can survive and have a rest. Then you can get the 4 great unique skills. As for the last 3 layers at the back, it is up to you whether to go or not and how to finish it. As far as I know, a lot of ancient gods have tried to go to the tower, but only one passed through the first 4 layers and survived. And that person just passed the first 4 layers and had no guts to go to the 5th floor. King of Venomous Worms said. Only one person survived? Jian Wushuang said. Why didn't you say so before? If I said it earlier, would you be so determined to say you are going? King of Venomous Worms smiled. Do not worry, I have confidence in you because you are different. You are an inverse cultivator. There has never been an inverse cultivator to go through the Star Moon Tower. I think you can make it. Just do your best. You will definitely impress everyone. King of Venomous Worms was obviously confident in Jian Wushuang. I hope. King of Venomous Worms shrugged. Jian Wushuang had no choice but to have a try. Someone wants to enter the Star Moon Tower. This news caused a heated discussion among all the ancient gods. The Star Moon Tower was a nightmare to them. After all, the journey in the tower was risky and had a high mortality rate. For 100,000 years, the Star Moon Tower had not been opened. Ancient gods would rather give up learning than risk their lives. Now, the Star Moon Tower had opened once again. 10 days later, many ancient gods had decided to watch Jian Wushuang's journey. In the large space in the city, an altar was suspended, and a dozen figures were sitting there, with 2 of them sitting in the center. One of these 2 people was Gu Yi King. The other person was also a 7-star ancient god. They are Gu Yi King and Gu Mei. They have both come in person. Yes. After all, The Star Moon Tower has not been opened for more than 100,000 years. It is rare to open it once. They should be present. There was a lot of discussion. So many people. Jian Wushuang said when he felt the crowd with his soul power. At this moment, Gu Yi King in the altar waved his hands. With a rumbling sound, an old, dark tower emerged. This dark tower quickly zoomed and rose to a high altitude. "This is Star Moon Tower?" Jian Wushuang exclaimed. The tower was incomparably grand and awesome. On the altar, in addition to Gu Yi King and Go Mei, there were more than 10 six-star ancient gods. At that moment, they were also talking and laughing. After 110,000 years, Star Moon Tower has finally opened again. After all, it is so dangerous. I remember that 110,000 years ago, when the Star Moon Tower was open, a little guy called Gu Jiu went to the Star Moon Tower. He was not bad. But unfortunately he died on the 3rd layer. I don't know if the little guy today can be better than Gu Jiu. Even if he's better, in the end he will die. Those 6-star ancient gods knew well the danger of the Star Moon Tower, so they didn't think Jian Wushuang could survive. They just hoped that he could perform better and show them some fun. "Gu Jian, let's get started." The low voice of Gu Yi King was like thunder, and suddenly it sounded throughout the heavens. Suddenly, the entire space was immediately quiet. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath, looked up at the altar, then stepped forward to the tower. All eyes were on Jian Wushuang. Chapter 1623 Challenge. Chapter 1623 Challenge. He is the hothead who feels that he has a long life ahead of him. A 5-star ancient god challenging the Star Moon Tower. He is really courting death. I have heard that Gu Jian is a mixed bloodline between ancient gods and human beings. Moreover, his ancient god bloodline seems to be of the royal class. A mixed bloodline has become a royal ancient god. So what if he's a royal ancient god? He is merely a mixed bloodline who is unrecognized. Moreover, he's about to die today. Countless eyes were staring at Jian Wushuang. Most of them were filled with ridicule and pity. Jian Wushuang, ignore them and go straight to the Star Moon Tower, the king of venomous worms said. I know, Jian Wushuang giggled. He had already ignored the gazes of the surrounding ancient gods a long time ago. Jian Wushuang's body turned vague and he had already entered the pitch-black ancient tower which was floating high up in the sky. Atop the sacrificial altar. Scorpion, the first level of the Star Moon Tower is guarded by your ancient god shadow, right? You have to hold back slightly. If not, it will be uninteresting if it ends at the first level. That's right. Don't kill that little kid straight away. Some 6-star ancient gods laughed. Everything is according to the rules. I will use the abilities that I am supposed to use, the apathetic old man known as Scorpion said calmly. I shall stop talking now. It's about to begin. After talking, the apathetic old man closed his eyes. First level of the Star Moon Tower. It was a giant wasteland with a scorching sun in the sky. As soon as Jian Wushuang appeared in the wasteland, he noticed the giant shadow in front of him right away. The giant shadow was an ancient god. Moreover, it was a 6-star ancient god. However, the aura on his body was not very strong. This Star Moon Tower is still the same as before. As the king of venomous worms looked at the 6-star ancient god, he laughed loudly at once. King of venomous worms, what's going on? Jian Wushuang was puzzled. Jian Wushuang, I said before that you do not need to be too worried about the Star Moon Tower. To a normal person, the Star Moon Tower is indeed extremely difficult. However, to an inverse cultivator like you, it is not considered too difficult. Take the first level as an example. As you are only a universe god and hence a 5-star ancient god, the guard who you meet on the first level will only possess the fighting capabilities of a normal 6-star ancient god, and this is equivalent to that of a normal void real god of the human beings. You only need to kill him and you will be able to clear the first level, the king of venomous worms laughed. A normal void real god? Jian Wushuang's eyes moved, Can I use the techniques of a human cultivator in here? Of course. You can use any techniques you want, the king of venomous worms laughed. That's all I needed to know, Jian Wushuang grinned. At that very moment, the six-star ancient god was already looking at Jian Wushuang and his loud voice resounded. You are really courageous to challenge the Star Moon Tower. However, it's a pity that having too much courage sometimes mean that you are ignorant. Thus, you will have to pay a price for your own ignorance. Let's begin. The six-star ancient god had already taken out his purple giant hammer. Ignorant. Jian Wushuang smiled and sword essence rose from body. At the next moment, Jian Wushuang moved. Swish. A glittering light swept past the void with rays of sword light appearing in the process in a flash. Jian Wushuang had already appeared behind the six-star ancient god and he was already putting the Blood Mountain sword into his scabbard. I wonder, who is the ignorant one? Jian Wushuang's laughter resounded across the wasteland. The six-star ancient god who was holding the purple giant hammer had already opened his eyes wide and his face was filled with shock. He had already done ample preparations and had even taken his weapon out. However, from the start to the end, he did not even get a chance to swing the purple hammer that he had taken out and his body had already started to dissipate. Outside the Star Moon Tower, atop the sacrificial altar, the two seven-star ancient gods King Gu Yi and Gu Mei as well as tens of top six-star ancient gods were sitting down with interest and having a conversation. All of a sudden, the apathetic old man known as Scorpion opened his eyes and his eyes were filled with astonishment. The surrounding six-star ancient gods also noticed the actions of the apathetic old man and they looked over immediately. Scorpion, what happened? It's over so quickly? Isn't that little kid too weak? Some six-star ancient gods were still talking. However, the apathetic man's expression turned grave and he spoke immediately. Everyone, the little kid has already cleared the first level. What? The ancient gods atop the sacrificial altar were all stunned. He did it in only an instant. How can he be so fast? Scorpion, could it be that you really showed mercy and let that little kid clear the first level intentionally? Scorpion, what's going on? King Gu Yi, who was at the center of the sacrificial altar, looked down. The apathetic old man stood up straight away and said respectfully, King Gu, Lady Gu Mei and everyone else, all of you have always been clear about my conduct. I will do things properly according to the rules. So, why would I show any mercy? The thing is that the little kid is not normal. The moment he made a move, my ancient god shadow was killed by him with one stroke, before it was even able to react. Killed by one stroke. This. All the six-star ancient gods had perplexed expressions. Looks like that little kid is not as stupid as we have thought. For him to challenge the Star Moon Tower, he must something that he can rely on. Lady Gu Mei, who sat at the center, giggled. Since he possesses the bloodline of human beings as well, he has definitely comprehended the power of Heaven Wei like human cultivators, and if I'm not wrong, his level of comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei is extremely high. Ling Shan, the second level of the Star Moon Tower is guarded by your ancient god shadow. Be careful. Understood, a big, tall man nodded his head respectfully. However, after a short while, the big, tall man opened his eyes. Everyone, that little kid has already cleared the second level. Moreover, he only used one stroke, just like before. The ancient gods present became stupefied. For the third level of the Star Moon Tower after that, it was also cleared with one stroke. At the very moment, the expressions of the ancient gods at the sacrificial altar turned grave. The expressions of King Gu Yi and Gu Mei were extremely serious as well. The first three levels of the Star Moon Tower were cleared. Moreover, all of them were cleared with one stroke. This was enough to say that Gu Jian, who was challenging the Star Moon Tower, was not normal. Could it be that a second expert, who is able to clear the fourth level of the Star Moon Tower, is about to be born again in the Ancient God clan? A six-star ancient god could not help but say. How can it be that easy? King Gu Yi's expression turned grave. The Star Moon Tower gets harder as one goes higher. Moreover, there is a great threshold between the third and fourth level. The ancient god shadows of the past 3 levels only possess the fighting capabilities of a stage 1 6-star ancient god. However, the ancient god shadow of the 4th level is a stage 2 6-star ancient god. Guard of the 4th level, kill this little kid at the 4th level. Understood, someone from the sacrificial altar replied immediately. Chapter 1624, the second one in history. Chapter 1624, the second one in history. Star Moon Tower, the 4th floor. A 10-meter-high golden-armored ancient god stood in front of Jian Wushuang and held a spear in his hand. His breath was very powerful. Jian Wushuang, your opponent on the 4th layer is equivalent to the 6-star ancient god who entered the 2nd stage, which is equivalent to the primary level or medium level of an eternal real god. King of Venomous Worms said. The eternal real god at the bottom? Jian Wushuang felt confident. Jian Wushuang leaped for hundreds of miles in an instant toward the golden-armored ancient god. Hey! Jian Wushuang combined his sturdy power of the sword and his ancient god power, as well as his insight on the reincarnation doctrine. This 10-meter-tall golden-armored ancient god pointed his spear with a horribly great force that instantly smashed the void around Jian Wushuang. Bang! However, the golden-armored ancient god was hit back by Jian Wushuang's force and had to step back 3 steps. I am a 2nd-stage 6-star ancient god, but I am weaker than a 5-star ancient god? The golden-armored ancient god was shocked. Suddenly Jian Wushuang waved his sword again. Incredibly fast. How could it be so fast? The golden-armored ancient god was shocked. Their consecutive attacks from Jian Wushuang. The first confrontation, the ancient god was forced to step back. The second confrontation, the spear in his hand flew away. The third confrontation, Jian Wushuang stabbed the armor of the ancient god. The 4th layer had been passed. Hey, you were right, it was easy for me to pass the first 4 layers, Jian Wushuang smiled. Good job. King of Venomous Worms said. For ancient gods, it was difficult for a 5-star ancient god to challenge the 6-star ancient god, let alone the one in the 2nd stage, which was comparable to the human eternal real god level. Because of the great difficulties, the Star Moon Tower was a nightmare for the ancient gods. In a long period of time, only one ancient god had passed the first 4 layers. However, for Jian Wushuang, it was a piece of cake. After all, he could already beat an eternal real god at this level when he was passing the Burning Demon region in the 3rd round of the inverse cultivation test. Later, after hundreds of years of cultivation, he had relied on his own skills to kill a powerful real god Shiju. It was enough for him to pass the 4th layer back then. What's more, he later went to Thunderbolt Island in the Sanctuary Alliance for more than 1,500 years. In that 1,500 years, his strength had advanced by leaps and bounds, and he had already reached a new level. Now, it was too easy for him to kill an eternal real god of the bottom level, so just passing the 4th layer meant nothing to him. Outside the tower, above the altar. This guy passed the 4th layer so easily. How could it be? All the ancient gods on the altar, including Gu Yi King and Gu Mei, were also shocked. Countless ancient gods were all staring at the Star Moon Tower. At the beginning, everyone had just come to laugh at Jian Wushuang without expecting him to pass. But later, they had witnessed Jian Wushuang pass 1 layer and another very quickly. Finally, Jian Wushuang had passed the 4th layer. During that time, the whole audience was quiet. Silence. Everyone was speechless. Soon they started to discuss excitedly again. Has this guy really passed the 4th layer? How long has it been since we last saw an ancient god survive the 4th layer? I am not sure, but I am sure that he is the second one in history that has passed the 4th layer. Many ancient gods were all excited. In the midst of shock and excitement, some people found that Jian Wushuang didn't immediately come out of the Star Moon Tower as soon as he had passed the test. Read more chapter on novel full. He was still in the tower. Why doesn't he come out? Is he going to go up to the 5th floor? The 5th floor? Impossible. everyone was holding their breath. On the fifth layer of the tower also stood a golden-armored ancient god, but it was as tall as 20 meters. Jian Wushuang, the guy in the fifth layer, is as strong as an eternal real god of the peak level. King of Venomous Worms said. Isn't that the same as the real god Shiju in his heyday? Jian Wushuang asked. Well, almost, King of Venomous Worms nodded. Jian Wushuang smiled. Real god Shiju was close to a peak eternal true god. Jian Wushuang had once killed real god Shiju, but at that time he had to rely on the secret skills of Star Palace. The second reason was that the real god Shiju was seriously injured and only showed 70% of his power. However, after 1,500 years of cultivation in the Thunderbolt Island, Jian Wushuang was definitely capable of killing real god Shiju with his own power. On the fifth layer, the golden real god was like golden lightning, and his voice echoed in this space. You have already passed the fourth floor and have been recognized by ancient gods. You should be content and should not come here. You will die. Really? Jian Wushuang smiled. Chapter 1625, Challenge to the End. Chapter 1625, Challenge to the End. Boom! The 20-meter-tall gold-armored ancient god attacked straight away. A great amount of golden ancient god power gathered in his index finger instantly. After that, his index finger, which was filled with thick ancient god power, was pointed out abruptly. Rumbolts, the void collapsed and an ancient, giant golden finger appeared out of thin air. For the Star Moon Tower, the guards at the higher levels would be even more powerful. Moreover, it was not just in the aspect of abilities. It also included close-quarters combat techniques and unique skills. For example, for the first 4 levels, the ancient gods guarding the level only displayed the abilities they were supposed to display and they did not use ancient god unique skills. However, from the 5th level onward, the guards would use unique skills. As such, at that very moment, the golden ancient god used the ancient god's finger. Ancient god's 4th finger? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrow. What a coincidence! I know this move as well. As soon as the words left his mouth, a tremendous amount of ancient god power appeared from Jian Wushuang's hands and gathered at his right index finger crazily. As Jian Wushuang pointed out his finger, a similar giant finger appeared on the universe. Both giant fingers looked as if they had appeared from the past and they possessed a frightening power, which was earth-shaking. At the next moment, both giant fingers clashed. Bam! With a loud sound, the shocking ancient god power shattered the void completely into pieces. The two ancient god powers were opposing each other madly. They were both the god's test of the ancient god's 4th finger. The only difference was that one of the fingers was unleashed by a stage 2 6-star ancient god, while the other one was unleashed by Jian Wushuang, a 5-star ancient god. Of course, although Jian Wushuang was only a 5-star ancient god, he did not possess only the ancient god power, he possessed divine power as well. As an inverse cultivator, by combining both divine power and ancient god power, the ancient god's 4th finger that he unleashed with his full power would have shocking power as well. In the end, both their attacks dissipated completely while opposing each other. How can this be? The gold-armored ancient god was astonished. Gu Jian has awakened the royal ancient god bloodline and he would definitely have some memories of inheritance. Thus, it would be normal for him to be able to use the ancient god's 4th finger. However, he is merely a 5-star ancient god. How can the power of his ancient god's 4th finger be the same as mine? Just as the gold-armored ancient god was surprised. A ghost-like body had already appeared in front of him and a sword light struck. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. For the sword shadows, every one of them contained the power of space-time. Thus, they were extremely fast and they headed toward the gold-armored ancient god. The gold-armored ancient god acted straight away to block the attack. However, as soon as the both of them fought, the gold-armored ancient god understood immediately that he could not stop Jian Wushuang. Damn it! The sword principles of this little kid is too fast and delicate. Moreover, my ancient god shadow is under many restrictions in the Star Moon Tower. Thus, I am unable to unleash some of my unique skills and secret skills. With that, I am unable to stop him and I will probably be defeated. The gold-armored ancient god could not do anything either. At the 5th level of the Star Moon Tower, he could indeed use ancient god unique skills. He could use the ancient god finger move, but not other unique skills or the secret skills. Moreover, his power was unable to suppress Jian Wushuang completely. Therefore, it was normal for him to be unable to stop Jian Wushuang's sword principles. In no time, the gold-armored ancient god was defeated completely. 5th level cleared. As Jian Wushuang saw the body of the gold-armored ancient god in front of him dissipating slowly, his eyes glowed brilliantly. I have cleared the 5th level of the Star Moon Tower. In other words, after I get out now, I will be able to obtain the 4 unique skills within the ancient god palace, as well as one of the secret skills of the 3 secret skills. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists tightly. That's right, the king of venomous worms nodded his head. For you to be able to reach this stage, it's already considered not too bad. As for the 6th level, if I'm not wrong, the fighting capabilities of the guard on the 6th level are of a top stage 2 6-star ancient god, which is equivalent to that of an eternal real god standing at the peak. With your current abilities, you can try to challenge the 6th level. However, there will be a considerable amount of risk. After all, if you are unable to clear it, the only fate awaiting you is death. After hearing what had been said, Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. However, he raised his head up in the blink of an eye. My current abilities are enough to fight against a top eternal real god, and the probability of me clearing the 6th level is not low either. Since I have already cleared the 5th level, I shall continue challenging the next few levels to the best of my abilities. Jian Wushuang laughed nonchalantly. It would be great if I could clear the 6th level successfully. If there's really no chance, I still have the secret skill of Star Palace as my trump card. You're not wrong, the king of venomous worms laughed. Since that's the case, go ahead and challenge the next level. Jian Wushuang's body moved right away. Outside the Star Moon Tower, numerous ancient gods focused their attention on the Star Moon Tower. Although they were unable to see what was happening inside the Star Moon Tower, they could tell how many levels Jian Wushuang had cleared from the dim light that the Star Moon Tower was emitting. At that moment, the 5th level of the Star Moon Tower emitted a dim light. After seeing that, many ancient gods present could not help but be shocked. The 5th level has been cleared. Firstly, he is the first person in the history of the ancient god clan to clear the 5th level of the Star Moon Tower. The first person in history. Countless ancient gods on the drill ground roared madly, and all of them were extremely excited. Atop the sacrificial altar, many top 6-star ancient gods, including the 2 7-star ancient gods, became silent. However, this silence only continued for a short while. This damn little kid. A furious voice could be heard, and everyone atop the sacrificial altar looked toward the source of the voice. The face of a red-haired, big old man, who was sitting on the throne, was filled with anger at that very moment. This little kid has actually come to the 6th level that I am guarding. The 6th level? The top 6-star ancient gods and even the 2 7-star ancient gods King Gu Yi as well Gu Mei could not help but reveal an astonished expression at that very moment. It was still not enough, even though he had cleared the first 5 levels. At that very moment he still wanted to clear the 6th level. This little kid, what does he treat the Star Moon Tower as? King Gu Yi could not help but shout furiously. At the space of the 6th level in the Star Moon Tower, the ancient god shadow of the red-haired, big old man was only a 10-meter-tall gold-armored ancient god, and he was standing in front of Jian Wushuang. However, he was different from the guard of the 5th level. When Jian Wushuang faced the gold-armored ancient god on the space of the 6th level, he felt an extremely great amount of pressure. As expected, the guard of the 6th level has fighting capabilities comparable to an eternal real god who stands at the top. However, it is only because of this that it will be challenging. As Jian Wushuang laughed, a tremendous amount of fighting intent rose from his body and the blood mountain sword in his hands started to shake madly. As a 5-star ancient god, you have managed to clear the first 5 levels of the Star Moon Tower and you should have unlimited possibilities in your future. However, it's a pity that you have chosen the wrong path. The ancient god shadow of the red-haired tall old man looked down at Jian Wushuang. I am different from the guards of the first 5 levels. Not only are they restricted in terms of their abilities, even their unique skills are restricted as well. However, at the 6th level I can unleash all my unique skills to my liking. Thus, I have no chance. Chapter 1626 Unique Skills of Ancient Gods. Chapter 1626 Unique Skills of Ancient Gods. After hearing what the elder had said, Jian Wushuang replied, "Okay. I am curious about the power of the 4 great unique skills. I will not disappoint you," the elder said, and the next moment he pointed out his index finger. With a rumbling sound, a giant, dark hand emerged with the power of smashing anything. The giant hand extended out and its index finger contained an incomparably special and powerful force. This is Ancient God's 5th finger? Jian Wushuang was surprised. There were 9 Ancient God's fingers in total, and Jian Wushuang had learned 6. The Ancient God's 5th finger was Get Through Difficulty finger. So he was surprised that he had met the Ancient God's 5th finger at the beginning. Jian Wushuang looked serious. He lifted up the Blood Mountain sword instantly and soon, in the void, 10 slashes from the bloody sword emerged. Each slash contained great power and they appeared together in an instant. Actually, Jian Wushuang didn't do his best, but the attack was already strong and suffocating. Bang! The slashes from Jian Wushuang's sword collided with the black giant finger. That produced a resounding rumble and the 6th layer was immediately surrounded by a storm of power. Jian Wushuang, who stood in his original place, shifted his figure. A magical storm abruptly swept out, and the figure of Jian Wushuang instantly turned into hundreds of phantoms. Each phantom was very different, shifting fast to the elder. Universal laws. The golden-armored ancient god transformed by the elder used his tremendous breath and generated his great ancient god power. All of a sudden, he gathered hundreds of figures, each of which had tremendous power. Go to hell! As the elder shouted, he and his hundreds of figures waved their hands at the same time. Bang! Those figures slashed hundreds of palm attacks at the same time rushing to Jian Wushuang. What? Jian Wushuang couldn't believe it. Jian Wushuang, be careful. All the phantoms you have seen from the elder are entities. Their attacks are also real, King of Venomous Worms said. All are real attacks? Jian Wushuang was shocked. The dense golden palms came at the same time. Most of them went to the phantoms of Jian Wushuang, but others went directly to his real body, and Jian Wushuang avoided them all. But in this way, the elder could tell which one was the real body of Jian Wushuang. That is it. The elder targeted at the real body of Jian Wushuang and slashed a new round of palm attacks. Hundreds of phantoms behind him all slashed palms directly to Jian Wushuang's real body. Jian Wushuang was overwhelmed by the attacks. Boom, 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 boom. Suddenly, there was a great roar. A roar echoed between the heaven and the earth, and a golden light burst out. Under the pressure of the palm attacks, a divine ape covered in golden armor rose. It was thousands of meters tall, its breath was much stronger, and he was holding a sword and his eyes were fierce. At the same time, bloody flames spread all over the 6th layer, making it a bloody fire sea. And Jian Wushuang became the emperor in the sea of fire. Ha! As Jian Wushuang shouted, the huge golden divine ape rose. In an instant, this golden ape appeared in front of the elder. At this time, the elder blinked his eyes and his phantoms all converged behind him. At the same time, the elder generated his power and sword once again. Then his figure quickly exploded to one as tall as the ape. He clenched his right fist and punched Jian Wushuang. Bang! In response, the golden ape transformed by Jian Wushuang held the sword in his hand and integrated his divine power and reincarnation power. Jian Wushuang waved his stunning sword, which was powerful enough to tear the sky. The sword and the palms collided with each other. At that time, Jian Wushuang stepped backward and changed into nearly 100 phantoms. The phantoms of Jian Wushuang were as flexible as fish in the water, and his real body was surrounding the elder. Jian Wushuang was looking for opportunities to attack the elder based on his insights of time and space. He exercised his swordsmanship to its full extent. At that moment, the elder seemed at a disadvantage. Suddenly, "Hey!" The elder's power skyrocketed. Behind his shoulder, the only big head transformed into 3 more heads. In addition, there were also 6 arms that extended out. "What is that?" Jian Wushuang was shocked. At that moment, the golden-armored ancient god in front of him turned into 4 heads and 8 arms. 4 heads and 8 arms now. Jian Wushuang, this is one of the 4 great unique skills. If it is cultivated to the full extent, it can be turned into 9 heads and 18 arms. The skill is not only about heads and arms, it is also accompanied by a set of attacks that will greatly improve one's capacity to kill. The attacking method of 3 heads and 6 arms is different from that of the 4-headed and 8-armed one. The most terrible one is that of 9 heads and 8 arms. It is a nightmare for you. King of Venomous Worms said to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang had encountered similar skills that could add heads and arms before, but they were simply adding the number and were nothing to do with changing attack skills. But now in the skill of the ancient god clan, each added head and arm meant a leap in power. Chapter 1627, The Final Trump Card. Chapter 1627, The Final Trump Card. Reincarnation World. When Jian Wushuang swung his big hands, a vast amount of reincarnation power surged and changed into gray air currents. In the end, the gray currents gathered and combined into a big gray world. The gray world struck the red-haired, tall old man directly. The red-haired, tall old man had a total of 4 heads. At that very moment, his 4 pairs of eyes were releasing thick murderous aura, and even when covered by reincarnation world, his aura still did not weaken at all. At the same time, his 8 sturdy arms moved. From the 8 arms, there might be a punch, slap, sharp claw, or fingertip. Even though he had different attack moves, his 8 arms cooperated with one another beautifully. Moreover, his 4 heads also opened their big mouths at the same time. Either their big mouths gave off shocking soundwave attacks, or their eyes released thunderbolts. In no time, all kinds of attack headed toward Jian Wushuang. Gosh! Jian Wushuang used his full power. He unleashed his comprehension of the reincarnation doctrine and spacetime doctrine as well as his close-quarters combat abilities thoroughly. However, when he fought against the red-haired, tall old man, he was still pushed back instantly and even suppressed in just one face-off. Swoosh! Jian Wushuang's body retreated hastily. After he regained his posture, he could feel the trembling aura within his body, as well as the extreme pain in his shoulders and chest. On the blood feather reincarnation armor covering those 2 parts, there was a marking left behind by a sharp claw and a fist respectively. In just one face-off, I was hit by him twice. Moreover, I was shaken up by the soundwave attack. These close-quarters combat abilities, Jian Wushuang clicked his tongue in admiration. Frightening. 4 heads, 8 arms. The close-quarters combat abilities displayed by combining the different kinds of attack beautifully were way more fearful than the close-quarters combat abilities of any experts that Jian Wushuang had come across. Ancient gods are generally proficient in close-quarters combat. Combined with this unique skill that is specific to them, they can be considered number 1 in terms of close-quarters combat among the clans of the eternal chaotic world. This ancient god, who is currently fighting with you, is still alright as he only has 4 heads and 8 arms. However, my old master King Luozhen managed to hone this unique skill until he possessed 8 heads and 16 arms. Moreover, he was an 8-star royal ancient god, and if he were to have a fight in close quarters, he would not be afraid in the slightest, even if 2 or 3 almighties at the level of the founder of the lineage of Star were to team up against him. The King of Venomous Worms' voice could be heard. Jian Wushuang could not help but gasp in admiration. The Star Palace Master and King Luozhen, who was an 8-star ancient god, belonged to the same level. Thus, they should have similar abilities. However, by just comparing close-quarters combat abilities alone, with 8 heads 16 arms, King Luozhen could compete against 2 or even 3-star palace masters alone, and this was definitely not empty words. The ancient god clan had always been recognized as the number 1 in terms of close-quarters combat. Since his close-quarters combat abilities are so strong, my martial art motion and sword principles will be useless against him. Hence, I can only depend on my special moves. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned serious and divine power rose from his body madly. The divine ape, which was wearing golden armor and shrouding his body, also gave a furious roar. After that, its hands grabbed the long sword and raised it high up in the air. At the moment it raised up the long sword, an overbearing sword essence rose. Atop the void at the space of the 6th level, buzz, buzz, buzz. Crimson sword shadows appeared on the void, and there was a total of 16 of them. For the 16 crimson sword shadows, every one of them was so strong that it was suffocating, and if a normal eternal real god were to come across any one of them, he would definitely be terrified. However, at that moment, the 16 crimson sword shadows were superimposed onto one another and fused into one. Rumble. The sword shadow that was formed by the fusion of the 16 crimson sword shadow had earth-shaking power. Myriad waves kill. Jian Wushuang gave a fierce shout, and the long sword in his hands were swung downward. At the same time, the new sword shadow that was formed by the 16 crimson sword shadows also struck fiercely and abruptly. At that moment, the universe was affected as well. What an impressive amount of power! When the red-haired, tall old man saw the giant crimson sword shadow, the 8 eyes on his forehead shrank. Straight away after that, his 8 arms put their palms together. 8 divine mountains. Bang, 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 bang. Lofty golden divine mountains descended abruptly. Every golden divine mountain was about 100,000 feet tall, and they were emitting brilliant golden light. After counting, one could conclude that there was a total of 8 similar divine mountains. The 8 divine mountains appeared in front of the red-haired, tall old man and became a total of 8 obstacles. When the shocking sword shadow that Jian Wushuang had unleashed came, the sword shadow struck the 100,000-foot tall divine mountain at the front straight away. The first 100,000-foot tall divine mountain was destroyed instantly. The sword shadow then headed toward the second divine mountain, followed by the third divine mountain. 5 divine mountains were destroyed in one go. However, when it was the 6th divine mountain, the crimson sword shadow was hindered greatly, and it was only after some time that it barely managed to destroy the 6th divine mountain. When the remaining power struck the 7th divine mountain, it was no longer able to destroy the 7th divine mountain. In a split second, the sword shadow dissipated completely. As Jian Wushuang stood in his position and looked at the 2 remaining divine mountains, his expression was unusually serious. My strongest move, Myriad Waves, was actually stopped by him so easily? Jian Wushuang muttered. It's not considered easy. What he had just unleashed was the 8 divine mountains of the 4 unique skills, and this move is the only unique skill among the 4 unique skills that is used for defending. Although he had used it to stop your sword principles, it must have cost him quite a considerable amount of his ancient god power, the king of venomous worms said. Even though that's the case, he still managed to stop it in the end. Moreover, although I have already used up all my moves, I am still unable to do anything to him. Hence, if I were to continue fighting him and be suppressed, the person who will be killed in the end will definitely be me. Jian Wushuang frowned. There's no choice but to use my final trump card. Originally, Jian Wushuang did not plan to use his final trump card. However, it was a pity that the abilities of the guard of the 6th level had exceeded his expectations completely. Although it was merely a top stage 2 6-star ancient god, the ancient god unique skills that he had used were too powerful. Jian Wushuang could only use that move. Buzz, a marvelous power rose from Jian Wushuang's body and covered his body completely in the blink of an eye. It was the secret skill of Star Palace. Moreover, it was the second volume of the secret skill of Star Palace. I only have a breath's time. Kill! Jian Wushuang exerted force on his feet fiercely, and he moved like a ghost. Are you still going to struggle, even at the end? The red-haired, tall old man glanced at Jian Wushuang and he pointed out one of the fingers on his right hand fiercely. The void was shattered into pieces and a giant finger which was emitting an infinite amount of dim light appeared out of thin air. It was the ancient god's fifth finger, get through difficulty finger again. When the giant finger came, Jian Wushuang swung the Blood Mountain sword in his hands ferociously. Merciless sword essence tore the air apart, tore everything in the universe apart, and also ripped the giant finger in front of him into pieces. Chapter 1628, Level 6, Pass. Chapter 1628, Level 6, Pass. What? The red-haired old man was surprised. Then, there were ancient god shadows that appeared from nowhere behind him. I have no time to mess around with you. Jian Wushuang's eyes dilated in shock. Then his hands gripped Blood Mountain sword tightly. Virum, Virum, Virum. There were crimson sword shadows that appeared again and merged together flawlessly again. Hong. The sword shadow slashed down. It was still the same move, myriad waves. However, with the support of Power of Star, the power of that move increased tremendously by 100-fold. This. The red-haired old man's 8 eyes stared, and he could feel the terrifying power contained in the stroke. He could also tell that the stroke was beyond his endurance. The red-haired old man smiled bitterly, then he gave up struggling. Hong. A sword light swept across and everything shattered into pieces, including the ancient god body that belonged to the red-haired old man and also the ancient god shadows behind him. In no time, everything resumed its tranquility. Jian Wushuang stood on the spot and the power of Star in his body dispersed. Looking at the empty space before him, Jian Wushuang let out a breath of relief. Luckily, with the secret skill of Star Palace, I passed through the 6th level. As for the last, 7th level. Jian Wushuang, don't think about the 7th level now. If I'm not mistaken, the ancient god that you are going to meet on the 7th level will be a 3rd stage 6-star ancient god, also known as human chaotic real god level. Plus, the guardian on the 7th level will not only use all 4 unique skills, but the 3 secret skills as well. Forget about the fact that you can't perform the secret skill of Star Palace temporarily. Even if you could perform it again, don't think about passing it, King of Venomous Worms warned him. Jian Wushuang kept quiet. He knew that he could barely pass the 6th level and it would be impossible if he wanted to pass the 7th level. As I have passed the first 6 levels, I can already obtain the 4 unique skills and 2 of the 3 secret skills. I should feel content. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands and flew outside Star Moon Tower. Outside Star Moon Tower, it was dead silent on the huge drill ground. As for Star Moon Tower that was floating, the first level gave out intense dim light. Just as Jian Wushuang flew out from Star Moon Tower, countless gazes were fixed upon Jian Wushuang. Before that, as Jian Wushuang prepared to enter Star Moon Tower, the gazes were also fixed upon him. However, the gaze was different. Previously, the gazes were in disdain and sympathy. However, everyone's gaze then contained unprecedented shock and admiration. Passing the 6th level of Star Moon Tower, there was none among ancient god tribe. Jian Wushuang had created a miracle. He had made a legend. Jian Wushuang, can you feel the gazes? King of Venomous Worms' voice rang in his head. Jian Wushuang nodded faintly. He naturally noticed the gazes, but he never worried about them. Regardless of if these people pitied or ridiculed him, admired or respected him, he didn't care. He only cared about his results, which were the 4 unique skills and 3 secret skills. Jian Wushuang appeared before the altar and he bowed faintly at the lofty aura. He then said, "Misters, I wonder if I can join Ancient God Palace now to cultivate the unique skills and secret skills of Ancient God Tribe." Hearing what Jian Wushuang had said, the 6-star ancient gods seated on the top of the altar exchanged a look and became silent. on the far top of the altar. Gu Jian. A deep, thick voice rang out. King Gu Yi was already on his feet. His expression was complicated as he fixed his gaze upon Jian Wushuang. You are a mixed bloodline of ancient gods and humans. You shouldn't receive ancient god tribes recognition originally. But now, you've passed the 6th level of Star Moon Tower. We of ancient god tribe honor power. You are powerful enough and you are recognized by me, the king. I, Gu Mei, recognize your existence as well. Gu Mei stood up as well. Both 7-star ancient gods acknowledged Jian Wushuang. The other 6-star ancient gods on the top naturally stood up one after another to show their recognition. Then King Gu Yi waved, Ling Shan, bring this young man to Ancient God Palace to receive his inheritance. Yes. Ling Shan nodded and then brought Jian Wushuang to Ancient God Palace. After Jian Wushuang had left, everyone on the altar remained silent. After a while, it was still King Gu Yi who broke the stalemate situation as he said, Well, there's an impressive young man born in Gu King City. With the power of a 5-star ancient god, he passed the 6th level of Star Moon Tower. I am curious as to how this young man did it, Gu Mei commented. Although he is a royal ancient god, he never cultivated any unique skills or secret skills of ancient god tribe. He naturally wouldn't know how to perform those. When he was going through Star Moon Tower, his power of ancient god bloodline wouldn't be of much use. He would still have to rely on his human skills. However, even if a top genius among humans wanted to pass the 6th level in Star Moon Tower at Universe God Realm, it'd be impossible. Unless King Gu Yi suddenly thought of a possibility. Inverse Cultivator? Gu Mei looked at him as well. The 2 7-star ancient god did know some about humans. They had even wandered into human territory before. Naturally, they had heard of inverse cultivators. From their point of view, only inverse cultivators could possibly do that. In no time, the ancient gods that had gathered around the battlefield dispersed. Although they had dispersed, they were still excited. After all, they had witnessed a miracle with their own eyes that day. The name, Gu Jian, had also spread across Gu King City like wildfire. In no time, his name would spread to other king cities, or even the entire ancient god sanctuary. Ancient God Palace, where there were palaces. Ling Shan, a 6-star ancient god, led Jian Wushuang to an ancient gold palace. There were 3 engraved words on the gold palace. Unique Skill Hall. Gu Jian, this is where the people from Ancient God Palace cultivate unique skill. The 4 unique skills of Ancient God Tribe are in Unique Skill Hall. They were passed down via inheritance of memory. You have 10 years' time. It depends on yourself as to how much you can inherit in these 10 years. 10 years later, no matter if you receive complete inheritance or not, you will have to leave, Ling Shan said. I understand. Thank you, Mr. Ling Shan, Jian Wushuang said. During the transfer of your inheritance, you won't have to worry that there'll be anyone who will come to disturb you. Go ahead, Ling Shan waved. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate and immediately entered Unique Skill Hall. Chapter 1629, Inheritance. Chapter 1629, Inheritance. The Unique Skill Hall was dusky. At the end of Jian Wushuang's line of vision, a lofty ancient god shadow could be seen faintly. The ancient god shadow was more than 1,000,000 feet tall, and it was definitely the biggest ancient god shadow that Jian Wushuang had ever seen. Moreover, even though it was a shadow, the aura that it released was stronger than a 7-star ancient gods, like King Gu or Gu Mei. What a large body and powerful aura. Could the owner of this ancient god shadow be the ancient god emperor from the past? Jian Wushuang exclaimed in admiration. It's him. The king of venomous worms nodded its head. However, it is rumored that the body of the ancient god emperor is a lot larger than this shadow. Moreover, as the only emperor of the ancient god clan, he is the strongest expert. The 4 unique skills and 3 secret skills in the ancient god clan now had all been created by him. Jian Wushuang, for the inheritance of the unique skills, under normal circumstances, the Pure One's bloodline is the easier it would be for the unique skills to be passed on to him. Since you are a royal ancient god, you should be able to inherit the 4 unique skills completely within 10 years' time. However, you should do your best to not waste any time. Let's begin. Understood. Jian Wushuang nodded his head and sat down with his legs crossed immediately. In no time, memories of inheritance appeared in his mind. Jian Wushuang also did his best to absorb all the memories of inheritance. Just like the ancient gods had said, with Jian Wushuang's royal ancient god bloodline, it would be very easy for him to inherit the unique skills. The 4 unique skills of the ancient god clan. From the ancient god's finger at the start, to universal laws, to 9 heads 18 arms and finally 8 divine mountains. The 4 unique skills were passed on smoothly. In the blink of an eye, 8 years' time passed. Ling Shan had been waiting outside the unique skill hall quietly. At that very moment, the door of the unique skill hall opened abruptly and Jian Wushuang walked out from it. You came out so quickly. Could it be that you have already fully inherited the 4 unique skills? Ling Shan said with surprise. Jian Wushuang chuckled, Lord Ling Shan, let's go to the place of inheritance for the secret skills. Ling Shan did not ask too much and he brought Jian Wushuang to 3 black, ancient attics immediately. Gu Jian, the 3 attics that you are looking at now is the lineage of ancient gods' place of inheritance for the 3 secret skills. After clearing the 6th level of the Star Moon Tower, you can inherit the Thunder Attracting skill and Star Destruction skill. However, you will not be able to inherit the Moon Picking skill, which is the final secret skill, Ling Shan said. Thunder Attracting skill and Star Destruction skill? Jian Wushuang's eyes squinted. He had heard of the names of the 3 secret skills from the King of Venomous Worms. However, he had never experienced how strong the 3 secret skills were. However, looking at it at that very moment, the Moon Picking skill was probably the strongest among the 3 secret skills. Jian Wushuang, it's already considered not too bad for you to be able to inherit 2 secret skills. As for the Moon Picking skill, it is indeed the most frightening secret skill of the ancient god clan and it is known to be a very remarkable ability. Although you are unable to get it now, if there is an opportunity in the future, you can still think of a way to clear the 7th level of the Star Moon Tower. At that time, you will be able to obtain the right to inherit the Moon Picking skill, the King of Venomous Worms said. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded his head. It would be great if he could obtain the Moon Picking skill in the future. However, if he were unable to obtain it, he would also not be too concerned. The 2 attics on the left are the places to inherit the Thunder Attracting skill and the Star Destruction skill respectively. Similar to the unique skill hall, you can stay in every attic for 10 years. As for how many memories of inheritance you are able to obtain within 10 years, it is entirely up to you. Go ahead, Ling Shan waved his hands and said. Jian Wushuang entered the first attic straight away. This attic was the place used to pass on the Thunder Attracting skill. Jian Wushuang also started to inherit the Thunder Attracting skill quickly. During the process, Jian Wushuang slowly understood the Thunder Attracting skill and the Star Destruction skill. The Thunder Attracting skill was used to attract the universal sacred thunder to kill one's opponent forcefully. It should be known that the attracted universal sacred thunder could be either of the same variety as in the God's test, or the life-destroying thunder. Moreover, the stronger one's abilities became, the more frightening the power of the attracted divine thunder would be. If one's abilities were to reach the level of King Luoxin's, he would be able to attract hundreds upon hundreds of life-destroying thunders with earth-shaking power when he unleashed the secret skill with his full power. This would definitely be an extremely frightening killing move. As for the Star Destruction skill, it was a secret skill which could allow one's abilities to skyrocket for a short period of time. However, this secret skill was a double-edged sword. Although it would make one powerful, there would be side effects to his body. When used, it could break apart the ancient god star that was forming in the space between one's eyebrows forcefully so that it would flow into the attacks of the user. This secret skill would be best suited for a difficult battle. If used properly, the tides would be turned during a bad situation. Of course, after the battle, the user's abilities would be affected and it would require some time for it to recover. In all, for the 2 secret skills, every one of them was unusually powerful and they were extremely useful to ancient gods. 2 addicts and 2 secret skills. If a normal ancient god were to inherit the 2 secret skills for 20 years, they might still be unable to inherit them completely. However, adding the time that Jian Wushuang had spent in both addicts together, he only spent a total of 18 years to obtain the complete memories of inheritance. At that very moment, he had obtained both the 4 unique skills and 2 secret skills. However, he had merely obtained them. If he wanted to use and also display their full power, he would need a lot of actual combat experience with them. Lord Ling Shan. Jian Wushuang appeared in front of Ling Shan. For the next period of time, it's all right for me to stay in the ancient god palace, right? Of course. Ling Shan nodded his head. All right, Jian Wushuang chuckled. The ancient god palace had many powerful ancient gods and did not lack 6-star ancient gods either. What Jian Wushuang lacked the most at that very moment was actual combat experience. Hence, the 6-star ancient gods in the ancient god palace were best suited to be his opponents. Moreover, Jian Wushuang had relied on clearing the 6th level of the Star Moon Tower to enter the ancient god palace. Thus, his name had already spread through the whole of Gu King City, as well as the entire ancient god sanctuary a long time ago. With that, many ancient gods within the ancient god palace yearned to have a battle with him. As such, Jian Wushuang did not need to challenge someone to a battle. By just walking around randomly in the ancient god palace, he would come across many ancient gods who were looking to battle him. This was what Jian Wushuang hoped for. For the next period of time, he would stay within the ancient god palace and battle against the ancient gods who came to challenge him. The abilities of the ancient gods who came to challenge him were both weak and strong. The strongest was a stage 2 top 6-star ancient god, while the weakest was a stage 1 ancient god. At the start, when Jian Wushuang fought them, he did his very best to not use techniques of human beings. He would not use the comprehension of the reincarnation doctrine and the spacetime doctrine. Instead, he would rely purely on his close-quarters combat skills and techniques of ancient gods to fight with them. During the intense battles, he continued to train and familiarize himself with using the ancient god clan's 4 unique skills and 2 secret skills. While he was undergoing such training, time continued to pass by. Chapter 1630 King Gu Tong. Chapter 1630 King Gu Tong. In the blink of an eye, Jian Wushuang had stayed in ancient god palace for 120 years. In a lofty hall in ancient god palace, Ling Shan stood politely before King Gu. King Gu, I have just received news that Gu Jian defeated Gu Jinyu, Ling Shan reported. Gu Jinyu isn't too strong among 2nd stage 6-star ancient gods. He could be considered intermediate. Gu Jian passed the 6th level of Star Moon Tower. Isn't it normal that he defeated Gu Jinyu? King Gui didn't care. If Gu Jian were to defeat Gu Jinyu when he went all out, it naturally wouldn't be much. But most importantly, he didn't use any human attack skills at all. He used the 4 ancient god unique skills to defeat Gu Jinyu, Ling Shan explained. Oh. King Gui then looked shocked. He never used any human attack skills? Are you sure about this? Yes, Ling Shan nodded. I am certain that he never once used his comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei, nor did he use any sword principles. At most, he used his divine power. In other words, his control of the 4 unique skills has surpassed Gu Jinyu? King Gui looked surprised. The Gu Jinyu that they were talking about was a 6-star ancient god who stayed in ancient god palace for many years. The purity of his bloodline was high, but he was only a silver-armored ancient god. His control of the 4 ancient god unique skills was extremely high. However, he was defeated by Jian Wushuang. Although I am reluctant to admit this, I have to say that Gu Jian is a really terrifying genius. No matter if it's a human or as an ancient god, he is 1 in a million. His improvement speed is terrifyingly fast. If this continues, I cannot imagine to what stage he will improve, Ling Shan said. King Gui smiled faintly. He couldn't predict Jian Wushuang's potential either. Oh yeah, the thing that I assigned you to look into. Did you find anything? King Gui asked. Yeah, Ling Shan nodded. I investigated twice and I got the same results. Gu Jian isn't from King Gu Tong bloodline. There isn't such an impressive 5-star ancient god from King Gu Tong's bloodline. I knew it. King Gui looked calm. He didn't seem to be surprised at the results. He carries a human bloodline. If I'm not mistaken, he should have been living in the human territory previously. He only came to Ancient God Sanctuary to partake in the Ancient God Palace examination. Hence, he registered using King Gu Tong's name. Is that so? Should we? Ling Shan had yet to finish his sentence. King Gui waved. Don't need to do anything. Regardless of the young man's origin, he does have an ancient god bloodline, that's the truth. Also, he passed the 6th level of Star Moon Tower, that's the truth as well. We only need to follow the rules that our ancestors left behind. I understand. Ling Shan nodded and then he left. Ancient God tribe was different from humans. Ancient God tribe purely relied on power and strength. As for fighting and scheming against one another went, it hardly happened. Gu King City, there were people shuttling to and fro on the street. That very moment, there was a troop made up of over 10 people marching into Gu King City. The troop was made up of ancient gods, but they were all weak. They were either 3 or 4-star ancient gods. As for 5-star ancient gods, there were only 2 of them. We are in King City now, you can walk around. Remember, don't get into any fights. Go ahead, a brawny elder exhorted. Then, the troop walked in all directions in excitement. The brawny elder and the other 5-star ancient god came to a shop. They had come to King City to get some necessities for their tribe after all. As they were purchasing some items, there were 3 figures gathered at a corner of the shop as they casually chatted. Among the 3, one of them was a bald, brawny man. As for the other 2, both of their figures and appearances were ridiculously alike. They should be twins. You brothers just arrived in Gu King City? The bald, brawny man asked. His voice was loud as though he was afraid that anyone could hear him. Yeah, the 2 of us have been staying in the tribe. We came to Gu King City this time with the intention to enter Ancient God Palace, one of the twin brothers said. TSK. After arriving outside the palace, he saw the stocky old man who was waiting quietly at one side straight away. Eldery. Jian Wushuang's eyes brightened up immediately. You are, Elder Yi also looked toward Jian Wushuang. At the start, he revealed a surprised expression. However, he opened his eyes wide after that. You are Jian Wushuang? That little kid from back then who awakened a portion of the royal bloodline? Ha! Elder Yi, long time no see, Jian Wushuang laughed and walked over. Elder, he was the first 3-star ancient god who Jian Wushuang had seen. Back then in the firmament territory of the Green Fire world, during the 100 years' time where he had lived with the ancient god clan within the Eternal Zone, the strongest ancient god who he saw was Elder Yi. Hence, he had a strong impression of Elder Yi. It should be known that to Jian Wushuang back then, a 3-star ancient god was a super existence. At that moment, Jian Wushuang realized that Elder Yi had become a 5-star ancient god. Moreover, he was a top 5-star ancient god and they were similar in terms of realm. Jian Wushuang, it's really you? Elder Yi still found it a bit unbelievable. Of course it's me. Let's go somewhere else and have a nice chat, Jian Wushuang laughed. Elder Yi nodded his head. He also knew that they were not at a good place to talk. In no time, the 2 of them came to a secret room which was by itself. After Jian Wushuang laid a seal, the 2 of them started to have a conversation. Jian Wushuang, back then you left so suddenly. You only left behind some words saying that you would return within thousands of years. However, tens of thousands of years have passed already. Elder Yi wore a smile. I had no choice. Jian Wushuang forced a smile. Elder Yi, to tell you the truth, I do not just possess the ancient god bloodline. I am also a human cultivator. Previously, I had never come into contact with the ancient god clan. However, after I awakened the ancient god bloodline, I naturally needed to leave. Originally, I wanted to wait until I got stronger before returning to the Eternal Zone to help all of you open up a sanctuary. However, who would expect that when I returned, the Eternal Zone would have already disappeared? Is that so? Elder E nodded his head as he could understand as well. Oh right, Elder E, the reason why the Eternal Zone disappeared was because of the return of your king, right? Jian Wushuang asked. Of course, he still asked even though he knew the answer. He had already known that the Eternal Zone was taken away by King Gu Tong. That's right. Not long after you left, the king returned. He brought us along and returned to the ancient god sanctuary. Now, the clansmen of our king's lineage have formed a tribe outside the Gu King city, Elder E said. A tribe? Jian Wushuang frowned. Why didn't you enter Gu King city? According to what he knew, King Gu Tong was a top 7-star royal ancient god. If he were in his peak, he would definitely not be weaker than King Gu Yi, and he might even be stronger. Moreover, he was a royal ancient god with the surname Gu. Hence, he could totally bring the clansmen under him into Gu King city and occupy a piece of land. Our king experienced a great change and his abilities had deteriorated greatly. Up until now, he had still not recovered fully. Moreover, he seemed to have some disputes with the current ruler of the Gu King city. As such, we are unable to enter the Gu King city, Elder E said. Something like this actually happened? Jian Wushuang was stunned. In actual fact, I came to the Gu King city this time around as I wanted to widen the knowledge of some kids. At the same time, I intended to bring back some items that the tribe needs. However, in the middle of doing so, I heard some people talking about you and I rushed over. Who would have expected that the person who cleared the 6th level of the Star Moon Tower 150 years ago was actually you? Elder E gasped. Chapter 1632, Seeing King Gu Tong. Chapter 1632, Seeing King Gu Tong. Elder E, when are you returning to the tribe? Jian Wushuang asked. The things that are needed in the tribe have been purchased. We can return any time, Elder E said. That's great. I'll follow you back to the tribe. I'd like to see King Gu Tong as well. I have many questions that I'd like to ask him personally, Jian Wushuang said. He had many doubts and questions in his mind. It involved many aspects and King Gu Tong should be able to answer quite a few things for him. If so, let's depart now, Elder E replied. Sure, I have no plans anyway, Jian Wushuang smiled. Jian Wushuang immediately followed Elder E and they met up with the other guys under King Gu Tong in the city before they walked out of the city. Outside the city, there was a troop of over 10 people plunging forward in the spacious void. They flew for a few days' time without break. Jian Wushuang, there's another half a day until we reach the tribe, Elder E said. Jian Wushuang nodded faintly and he was getting excited. One should know that he made some great friends back in the Eternal Zone. Some even rescued him before. Then, it had been tens of thousands of years. He wondered how the ancient gods were doing. Half a day later, there was a huge tribe that appeared before Jian Wushuang. Although it was a tribe, there were many towering, lofty buildings and some are floating. Under the lead of Elder E, Jian Wushuang stepped foot into the tribe. He spread his soul power and sensed some familiar auras in the tribe. The aura is Gu Yang's. Jian Wushuang was surprised. Gu Yang was the silver-armored ancient god who had once saved him. Elder Ing is here too. Jian Wushuang was filled with excitement when he sensed all the familiar auras. Jian Wushuang, let me bring you to see King first, Elder E said. Jian Wushuang nodded. Elder E immediately guided Jian Wushuang to the middle of the tribe, where a lofty purple palace was located. Outside the palace, there were a few ancient god guards standing guard. King. Elder E bowed to the palace politely. Come in, there was a lofty voice from the palace. Elder E brought Jian Wushuang into the palace. The moment Jian Wushuang entered the palace, he immediately saw a brawny shadow on the highest throne in the palace. He was 3 meters tall and his skin was in dark gold luster. There was a faint glowing gold light in his hands too. He still had yet to recover to his peak. However, there was arrogance in his eyes. The most interesting thing was the inverted 7 stars in between his eyebrows. The moment Jian Wushuang entered the palace, the brawny figure's dark golden eyes looked like a bolt of lightning. King. Elder Yi knelt down directly. King Gutong. Jian Wushuang bowed politely to show his reverence. Young man, it's you? King Gutong looked at Jian Wushuang. Naturally, he recognized Jian Wushuang. You can leave first. King Gutong glanced at Elder Yi. Yes, Elder Yi stood up politely and left. There was only Jian Wushuang and King Gutong left in the palace. Sit. King Gutong waved and there was immediately a stone chair in gold that appeared next to Jian Wushuang out of nowhere. Jian Wushuang sat down immediately without courtesy. Jian Wushuang, how is your master Xian Yi? King Gutong asked calmly. Master's body disappeared before me. However, I can tell that Master isn't dead. As for where he is now, I have no idea. Jian Wushuang shook his head. Hee, that old man, he is still so mysterious. King Gutong smiled faintly but wasn't surprised. King Gutong, it has been so many years and you have yet to recover from your injuries still? Jian Wushuang was shocked. One should know that when King Gutong had been in Green Fire World, he had been severely injured and he couldn't put his fighting power to play at all. But then, it had been a total of tens of thousands of years and King Gutong had returned to Ancient God Sanctuary. King Gutong's power had yet to fully recover after he had stayed in Ancient God Sanctuary for so long. Jian Wushuang's soul power could clearly sense that King Gutong then was still in an extremely weak state. In terms of his aura, it was barely comparable to his 6-star Ancient Gods. I am not injured. I was invaded by a strange power. It wouldn't be that easy if I wanted to resolve the power. King Gutong shook his head. Power invasion? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. What power is that? Even you, a peak 7-star royal ancient god, couldn't endure it and cannot remove it after so many years? This power, thanks to the battlefield at your hometown. King Gutong said. That battlefield? Jian Wushuang was stunned. Now that you have come to Ancient God Sanctuary, I believe you understand what is so unique about your hometown. If not, let me tell you, King Gutong started explaining. About this, the story began millions of years back. Actually, millions of years ago, I was already a peak 7-star royal ancient god and the overlord in Ancient God Sanctuary. Back then, the 8-star royal ancient god who was ruling Gu King City accidentally passed away and the position of ruler of Gu King City was vacant. There were only 2 people who were qualified to fight for the position then. One was me and the other was King Guyu. King Guyu and I are both peak 7-star ancient gods and we both have royal bloodlines. We also have many supporters and followers under us. Over the years, King Guyu and I were evenly matched. However, because of that, the match was hard to call and the one who could take the position of the ruler of Gu King City was undetermined. King Guyu and I knew that the only way to really take over the position to rule Gu King City was to see who broke through first and became an 8-star ancient god. Hence, the 2 of us went to look for opportunities in order to break through. King Guyu went to look for his opportunity while I went through a space gap in a unique mystery land by chance and came to the battlefield where your hometown was located. Then, Jian Wushuang looked surprised. It turns out that King Gutong came to the battlefield via a space gap. No wonder the experts in Green Fire Palace never noticed his arrival. If it wasn't for King Gutong being attacked later on, Green Fire Palace wouldn't know that there was a super existence in Green Fire World, Jian Wushuang exclaimed in shock. The environment where Green Fire World was in was unique. It was located within a space-time storm and there was a formation that Green Fire Palace set up in the space-time storm. Once outsiders barged in, Green Fire Palace would immediately notice. However, in actual fact, there were 2 outsiders in Green Fire World that Green Fire Palace had never noticed. The 2 outsiders were King Gutong and an expert from Holocaust sect, Dao Yuanzi, that Jian Wushuang had killed. Chapter 1633, A Big Secret. Chapter 1633, A Big Secret. King Gutong went to the battlefield directly via the space crack instead of passing through the Great Formation, which contained a spacetime storm. Hence, it was normal for him to go unnoticed by the Green Fire Palace. However, how about Dao Yuanzi of the Holocaust sect? How did he go into the Green Fire world? Jian Wushuang's mind was filled with doubts. The battlefield that your hometown is at is not normal. After arriving there, I only did a simple search and I found quite a number of treasures and opportunities. Hence, I concluded immediately that there is definitely a big secret and opportunities hidden in that battlefield. I also saw the hope of making a breakthrough to an 8-star ancient god on that battlefield. After saying that, King Gutong could not help but clench his fists. It was clear that the battlefield that the Green Fire world was at contained a big secret and many opportunities at that period of time. Even if it were King Gutong, he was also unable to remain calm about this fact. After that, for a period of time, I searched for opportunities all around the battlefield. I even used certain means to get many experts under me to search that battlefield. After searching for a very long period of time, we managed to find a few opportunities. Moreover, the longer I stayed at the battlefield, the more frightened I felt about it. However, apart from opportunities, that battlefield was also full of danger. In the end, I underestimated it. Originally, I had thought that with my abilities as a top 7-star ancient god, I would be able to deal with the dangers even if I were to come across them in that battlefield. Indeed, I had managed to deal with the 2 dangers I encountered previously. However, during the 3rd time, not only did it cost me all my best experts, I was also affected by this sinister corrosive power. This power corroded my ancient god power as well as the bloodline of my body to the point that my abilities dropped to the most primitive, lowest state. Moreover, if this power continues to corrode my body, my blood and my ancient god body will be corroded completely, which also means that I will be sucked dry and die as a result of this power. At that point of time, I really thought that I would die and I had given up all hope. However, at the most critical moment, your master, Xian Yi, appeared. King Gutong looked over. Master? Jian Wushuang was stunned. Your master and I made a deal. He manufactured an elixir to help me stop this sinister power from further corroding my body. Moreover, he also gave me a method to allow me to use my own power to remove this sinister power. Since I owe him a favor, he brought me to your hometown Green Fire world, King Gutong said. This is the same as what Master said. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. Jian Wushuang had asked his master Xian Yi about King Gutong before. Moreover, what Xian Yi said was similar to what King Gutong had said. As for what happened next, you know it yourself. I continued to stay in the Green Fire world to get rid of the sinister power. However, the process was extremely slow. It was not until an unforeseen event where you appeared occurred that Xian Yi made me take action. After I took action, my deal with him was complete. Hence, I naturally brought my people and left. However, even though I returned to the ancient god sanctuary, the sinister power inside my body is still not completely gone and it will take a period of time to be removed, King Gutong said. I see, Jian Wushuang understood completely. King Gutong, you said that you followed the space crack of a mystery land and ended up at the battlefield of my hometown. Where is that space crack? Jian Wushuang questioned seriously. That was a space crack which would lead anyone straight to the battlefield of his hometown. As soon as it was discovered and news of it spread, it would definitely attract a great number of experts to go to the battlefield of his hometown. Not to mention the fact that the treasures and opportunities of the battlefield were plundered by the experts, the most important thing was the safety of the Green Fire world. That was his hometown. Don't worry. The mystery land that the space crack is at is not normal and it will require a long period of time before it opens up. Currently, there is still a period of time before it opens up again. Moreover, even if that mystery land were to open up again, no one will discover that space crack. After all, that space crack is hidden extremely well, King Gutong said. That's still not too bad. Jian Wushuang heaved a sigh of relief and said earnestly after that, King Gutong, please do not let anyone know about that space crack or the battlefield in my hometown. No problem. King Gutong nodded his head straight away. Although that battlefield contains a big secret and great opportunities, it is considered a nightmarish place to me. In my remaining life, I will not want to take a second step into that place. Hence, I will naturally not tell anyone about it either. Thank you very much, Jian Wushuang said gratefully. Jian Wushuang, although I will not tell anyone about that space crack or the battlefield in your hometown, I still have to remind you that the battlefield in your hometown is not normal. It might be a giant battlefield which has been passed down from ancient times. In other words, the giant battlefield has been passed down during the ancient God Emperor's generation. Countless top experts have fallen in that battlefield. Moreover, those top experts did not consist of solely human beings but of many special clans as well. For example, within your hometown Greenfire world, there is quite a number of descendants of special clans which is inclusive of the descendants of the ancient God clan. All of this should be due to that ancient battlefield, King Gutong said. Jian Wushuang's expression turned grave. He had already made some guesses about what King Gutong had said. Within the Greenfire world, there were descendants from many special clans. For example, he was a descendant of the ancient God clan and he possessed the ancient God bloodline which would be awakened when the opportunity came. Apart from that, there were also the Heavenly Monster bloodline, Sky Devouring clan bloodline, Crimson Phoenix clan bloodline and many more. Most of them were top bloodlines. The Greenfire world was completely isolated from the eternal chaotic world. Under normal circumstances, how could there be descendants left behind by so many special clans? There was only one answer, and it was definitely related to the top experts of many special clans dying on that ancient battlefield. Jian Wushuang, you came to the ancient God sanctuary for the ancient God unique skills and secret skills, right? King Gutong looked over. That's right, Jian Wushuang nodded his head. However, you are a mixed bloodline between ancient gods and human beings. Hence, it is impossible for you to join the ancient God palace by normal means, King Gutong said. That's indeed the case. Hence, I could only challenge the Star Moon Tower. Moreover, I have cleared the 6th level, Jian Wushuang said. The 6th level? King Gutong raised his eyebrows and he was not surprised. An inverse cultivator is indeed impressive. King Gutong, you knew that I was an inverse cultivator since long ago? Jian Wushuang questioned. Of course, I could tell back when I was in your hometown, King Gutong laughed. Then, did my master know that I was an inverse cultivator a long time ago as well? Jian Wushuang could not help but ask. Since I was able to tell, your master definitely knew about it a long time ago, King Gutong giggled. Your master is the most mysterious and most unfathomable expert of all the numerous experts I have seen in my whole life. Chapter 1634, Azura Tribe. Chapter 1634, Azura Tribe. After pausing for some time, King Gutong continued talking. Your master is supposed to be extremely weak. However, he was able to appear in that ancient battlefield and also stop the corrosion from the sinister power in time for me. It must be known that this sinister power caused even a peak 7-star royal ancient god like me to give up all hope. Moreover, after interacting with him for a period of time, I have a feeling that he is very closely related to that ancient battlefield. It is even to the extent that I suspected that he was a consciousness body that was left behind by a peak expert who died on that battlefield. Of course, this is only my guess and I am not sure whether it is true. As Jian Wushuang listened, his expression became even more grave. He knew that his own master was a mystery. At the same time, the battlefield that his hometown was in contained shocking secrets. However, no matter what the secrets were, he would be unable to search for them with his current abilities. In the end, his abilities were still too weak. Even a top 7-star royal ancient god like King Gutong has treated that battlefield as a nightmarish place. From this, it can be seen how dangerous that battlefield is. Hence, if I want to search for the secrets of that battlefield, at the very least, I need to possess the abilities of an almighty before I have the right to do so. In order to make everything clear, I might have to become even stronger. Jian Wushuang's eyes were glowing with a strange expression. However, he was extremely firm like never before. No matter how much further he had to go before being able to find out everything to answer his own questions, he would still do his very best to fight for it. After all, that secret was related to too many things. It was related to his master who he respected the most and who he was greatly indebted to. It was related to the survival or extinction of his hometown, the Green Fire World. It was related to the infinite number of living things in the Green Fire World, which included many of his loved ones and good friends. In addition, it was also related to everything else. He would definitely make everything clear one day. However, at that very moment, he was still very far away from being able to do that. Boom! All of a sudden, a fierce, booming sound could be heard. With that, Jian Wushuang and King Gu Tong, who were in the palace, were alarmed. Jian Wushuang frowned. This should be done by the Azura tribe. Those people are really persistent. King Gu Tong shook his head and laughed. Azura tribe? What's going on? Jian Wushuang questioned. It has not been long since I returned to the ancient god sanctuary. Moreover, after I returned, I settled down there as a tribe. In addition, quite a number of experts, as well as King Gu Yu, the current ruler of the Gu King city, also knew that I returned. However, my abilities never recovered and it was not convenient for me to show myself. Thus, over the past few years, no matter who came to see me, I rejected all of them. As time passed by, the news of my abilities having deteriorated leaked out. However, this piece of news was never confirmed. As such, the Azura tribe came to provoke us repeatedly. King Gu Tong laughed. They are testing you? A thought flashed through Jian Wushuang's mind and he understood. As some of the top experts in the Gu King city were unable to confirm whether King Gu Tong's abilities were at their peak, they got the Azura tribe to step in and provoke him repeatedly. With just the ancient gods under King Gu Tong's lineage, they would naturally be unable to compete against the Azura tribe. Thus, King Gu Tong would be forced to take action. As soon as King Gu Tong took action, his abilities would be revealed immediately. Even if his abilities were to deteriorate, as long as he was not dead, no one would dare to act impudently in front of him. Even if they were to pluck up some courage, the Azura tribe, which was ruled by a stage 3 6-star ancient god, would not dare to find trouble for him. As for who was supporting the Azura tribe behind their back, Jian Wushuang had a good idea of it. Jian Wushuang, moments ago you mentioned that you cleared the 6th level of the Star Moon Tower? King Gu Tong looked toward Jian Wushuang. That's right, Jian Wushuang nodded his head. Since that's the case, please help me out and send the Azura tribe away, King Gu Tong said. No problem. Jian Wushuang did not hesitate and he stood up immediately. After that, he bowed to King Gu Tong and walked out of the palace. As soon as he left the palace, Jian Wushuang could hear the booming sound that was coming from the void outside the tribe continuously. It was obvious that some experts were fighting over there. Moreover, by looking at the divine power which had been spread all over the void, the abilities of the two people who were fighting were not weak and they should be 6-star ancient gods. Swoosh! With a flash of his body, Jian Wushuang hurried toward the battlefield. At the void outside the tribe, there were a great number of people and they were all ancient gods under King Gu Tong. At that very moment, they were looking at the battlefield in front of them worriedly. Elder Yi was also within the crowd. Elder Yi. Jian Wushuang appeared beside Elder Yi. Jian Wushuang, you have come. Elder Yi glanced at Jian Wushuang. Beside them, quite a number of clansmen also noticed Jian Wushuang's existence. Elder Ying and Brother Gu Yang, long time no see, Jian Wushuang greeted some of the people who he was once familiar with. Jian Wushuang, it's actually you. When those acquaintances saw Jian Wushuang again, all of them could not help but cry out in alarm. It should be known that they had not seen Jian Wushuang for tens of thousands of years and they thought that Jian Wushuang had died previously. When they saw him again, they naturally could not help but gasp. Oh! Jian Wushuang looked toward the battlefield in front of him. Within the battlefield, two shadows had revealed their ancient god bodies. They were both 6-star gold-armored ancient gods, and Jian Wushuang knew one of them. Gu Heng. A thought flashed past Jian Wushuang's mind. Back then in the Eternal Zone, Gu Heng was a genius of the ancient god clan which he came across. The Eternal Zone was a mystery land. Moreover, the ancient gods were under huge restrictions in the green fire world, and it was difficult for them to display their abilities. Hence, even their speed of improvement was extremely slow. However, ever since those ancient gods returned to the ancient god sanctuary, their abilities skyrocketed. For example, at that moment, Gu Heng had already become a 6-star ancient god. Although he was only a stage 1 6-star ancient god, he was considered one of the top few among the stage 1 6-star ancient gods. In addition, his bloodline was extremely pure and he had cultivated some ancient god unique skills before. As such, even though he was facing a stage 2 6-star ancient god at that moment, he was able to fight an intense battle with him for a long period of time. Although Gu Heng's abilities and his mastery of the ancient god unique skills are not too bad, it is a pity that the gap between the power of a stage 1 6-star ancient god and a stage 2 6-star ancient god is too huge. For him to be able to fight against the stage 2 6-star ancient god for some time, it is already considered good. However, in the end, the results will be, Jian Wushuang shook his head. As expected, after a short while, Gu Heng was defeated. When he turned his head fiercely, he saw a brilliant, dazzling sword light. This speed, how can he be so fast? The 6-star gold-armored ancient god opened his eyes wide and he was unable to react at all. Piak! The sword light dissipated and the sword blade of Jian Wushuang's Blood Mountain sword struck the huge body of the 6-star gold-armored ancient god. His powerful strength had caused the 6-star gold-armored ancient god's body to shake, and he retreated backwards while staggering. In the end, he fell to the ground. However, he stood up again in an instant and his eyes, which were looking at Jian Wushuang, filled with anger. If I had used the edge of my sword just now, your head would already be gone. Jian Wushuang's cold voice resounded across the universe. The 6-star gold-armored ancient god's body trembled. Even though he was extremely furious, he could only suppress his anger and not let it show. He knew that Jian Wushuang was right. If Jian Wushuang had used the sword edge instead of the sword blade just then, he would already be dead. Is he really only a 5-star ancient god? The 6-star gold-armored ancient god felt that it was unbelievable. He was a stage 2 6-star ancient god. However, he was defeated after one face-off. Moreover, he would already be dead if his opponent had not shown him mercy. This was something that a 5-star ancient god could do. When the ancient gods of King Gu Tong's lineage who were standing by the side of the battlefield saw such a scene, they became stupefied as well. Jian Wushuang, Gu Heng opened his eyes big and his face was filled with disbelief. He defeated a stage 2 6-star ancient god in just one face-off? Elder Ying and Gu Yang were both extremely shocked. The Jian Wushuang who they knew was a genius. However, he was far from being so frightening. As expected of the top expert to have cleared the 6th level of the Star Moon Tower, Elder Yi clenched both his fists tightly. Amidst a void, far away from the battlefield, there were a few shadows. These people were experts from the Azura tribe. In particular, the person at the front was the leader of the Azura tribe, Gu Luo. They had been staying in the void and they were keeping track of everything that was happening on the battlefield. At the start, when the 6-star gold-armored ancient god of their tribe had defeated Gu Heng easily, they had laughed as they were pleased and not surprised in the slightest. However, at that very moment, the experts of the Azura tribe were so shocked that they were stunned. How is that possible? That little kid is only a 5-star ancient god. With the power of 5-star ancient god, he defeated a stage 2 6-star ancient god instantly. Moreover, he also possessed the royal bloodline. This person? Could he be the exceptional genius whose name shook the Gu King city after clearing the 6th level of the Star Moon Tower not long ago? The first in history. The experts understood quickly. If it's really him, then that explains it. the leader of the Azura tribe squinted his eyes and he took a look at Jian Wushuang, who was far away. After that, his body moved and he headed toward the battlefield in front of him. As for the people behind him, they naturally followed him closely. In a jiffy, Gu Luo and his people appeared on the battlefield. "Leader, I am incompetent," the 6-star golden-armored ancient god who was defeated in the hands of Jian Wushuang apologized to Gu Luo right away. "This matter is not your fault." Gu Luo waved his hands and his eyes already looked toward Jian Wushuang, royal ancient god bloodline. "Although you are merely a 5-star ancient god, you have such strong fighting capabilities. If my guess is not wrong, you should be the genius Gu Jian, who cleared the 6th level of the Star Moon Tower, right?" "That's me," Jian Wushuang admitted openly. King Gu Yu's words, which were filled with warmth, echoed across the universe. At the same time, they also echoed within King Gu Tong's mind. That you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.